A conversation about the value of the comments section on news articles, X, Reddit, and more. Considering how vile the discourse can get, are there times we're better off not engaging with one another? Or is the comment section a sign of a healthy, if complicated, debate? Call or text our comment line, 877-301-8970.
I'm Marjorie Egan. The overcrowded Louvre Museum is going to move the Mona Lisa into its very own room at the cost of millions and millions of dollars. We'll talk about that and more with GBH's Jared Bowen. That's all ahead in the first hour of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, sort of live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Kristen Wright. The nominee to be the next Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services is testifying before a Senate committee at this hour. The start of Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s Senate confirmation hearings has focused, in part, on his views on vaccines. Kennedy told senators he's not against them.
And I believe that that vaccines play a critical role in healthcare. All of my kids are vaccinated. I've written many books on vaccines. My first book in 2014, the first line of it is, I am not anti-vaccine, and the last line is, I am not anti-vaccine.
Protesters have briefly interrupted the hearing a couple of times. Kennedy will face a separate Senate panel tomorrow. Some employees of the federal government are being offered what the Trump administration is calling deferred resignations with full pay and benefits if they agree to leave their jobs by the end of September. It's expected employees would be put on administrative leave until that time, according to the Office of Personnel Management. The deadline to decide is a week from tomorrow. The future of the Trump administration's plan to freeze federal payments for grants, loans, and other programs is uncertain. A federal judge is temporarily blocking it. Retired General and former Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman Mark Milley has lost his security clearance and personal security detail. NPR's Giles Snyder reports.
A Pentagon spokesman confirmed Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has informed General Milley of the decision and that Hegseth has directed the Defense Department's acting inspector general to open an inquiry into Milley's conduct, which could lead to demotion and retirement. President Trump nominated Milley to be chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff in 2018 during his first term, but their rapport has been rocky, and now Milley is the latest former government official to lose his security details since Trump regained the White House. Milley was among those who received a preemptive pardon from former President Joe Biden on his last day in office. Giles Snyder, NPR News.
A new analysis concludes that the hot, dry conditions that fueled the Los Angeles area wildfires are linked to climate change. NPR's Lauren Sommer has more.
This winter, the stage was set for a disaster in Los Angeles. After a long, hot summer, the vegetation was dry. That high heat is linked to climate change and the heat-trapping gases that come from burning fossil fuels. That's according to a new analysis from World Weather Attribution, an international collaboration of climate scientists. Seasonal high winds and a lack of rain also made the conditions worse, but figuring out the influence of climate change on them is trickier scientifically. Climate scientists are developing new computer models that can better analyze those complex impacts. Lauren Sommer, NPR News.
This is NPR News from Washington.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. The results are in from the National Assessment of Educational Progress, known as the nation's report card. GBH's Tori Bedford reports that Massachusetts students are still struggling with a decades-long decline in reading scores.
The state scored number 1 in the nation on the test, but results aren't back to pre-pandemic levels. And a closer look shows a decline in reading for both groups in 2024. In math, 8th graders stayed stagnant with only a slight increase for 4th graders. Martin West is a governing board member for the National Assessment. He says the data show a concerning trend that predates the pandemic.
We've seen higher achieving students performing as well as ever, while lower achieving students are declining rapidly.
West says racial and economic factors play a significant role in an achievement gap that has continued to widen. Tori Bedford, GBH News, 89.7.
Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey pledging more money to help cities and towns across the Commonwealth fix potholes, decaying roads, and decaying bridges. Healey's plan calls for tapping into revenue from the state's millionaires tax, and she also wants to borrow $1.5 billion over the next 5 years to help the 351 cities and towns in the state repave and make other transportation upgrades. The plan, which needs legislative approval, would provide up to $300 million a year to local governments. That's a 50% increase over previous fiscal years. All the way up to 42 degrees in Boston right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Amazon Business, committed to being a digital purchasing solution for businesses so that growing the business is the main focus and not admin and paperwork. Learn about smart business buying at amazonbusiness.com.
He is Jim Braude. I am Marjorie Egan. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We're sort of live from the Boston Public Library. I'm not because
you are live.
We are live. I had norovirus, which I don't recommend to anybody, so I'm staying home so I don't infect everybody at the show and at the library. But we are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, and I'm here on Zoom, Jim. Tomorrow, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley joins us, and we'll be back here Friday. I will be too, live with music and more. Hello.
Hi. You look good. How you feeling?
I feel much better, thank you.
You do?
I don't recommend norovirus.
Did you fade your background all by yourself, or you needed help?
I did. I blurred it.
It's beautiful, actually.
I brushed my hair. I put my lipstick on.
You look fabulous.
I'm ready to go.
We're really glad you're back. So we're going to start the show with something for your comments on free speech. That is, we're opening the phone and text lines, again, to get your comments about the comments sections on newspapers, websites, Twitter, Reddit, all that stuff. Boston Globe columnist Renee Graham, who is spectacular, got rid of the comments section on her columns 3 years ago, citing the lack of constructive feedback. In a column last week, she wrote, "It was the written equivalent of a rock thrown through a window in the middle of the night. With their identities concealed," that's key, commenters became their worst selves, spewing horrible things they probably wouldn't utter out loud, lest they reveal themselves as racist and misogynistic creeps. But is there a public good in the public comments? Those anonymous racist, misogynistic creeps have helped usher in our current political era, and some of them are emboldened in Trump's America to identify themselves. So how do we solve for the hate spewed online? Do we get rid of the accounts altogether? Do we get rid of anonymized accounts? Tying an identity to a username would help cut down on bots and trolls. Or do we just accept that this is the nature of the world and our country in 2025? What do you think? 877-301-8970. I'm not laughing at the content. I'm remembering when Marjorie was a columnist at the Herald and the Globe. Who read the comments on your section, on your columns, and who did not, Marjorie?
I did not, and you did.
I did. I would call Marjorie. I would text her or call her and say, I can't believe what they just said about you. Some were good, but generally it's the people in their mother's basements who are doing these comments things. I think the solution to this, even though it cut down on comments, you remember about a decade ago,
yes.
Dan Kennedy at Media Nation decided that you had to identify yourself if you're going to post a comment on something he put online there. And while I'm quite sure it reduced the volume of the comments, I also think it reduced the vitriol. How do you feel about the comments section?
I think, it's fun, I suppose, for people to read the comments. You can get an idea of what people think about the story. But some of them are so pathetic. I mean, for women, and Renee Graham was talking about this in her case, a lot of racism, a lot of misogyny, just kind of nasty stuff, you're an idiot, that kind of thing. But I think that we should have names. If you got something to say, put your name to it. And I think it would change. It's made it kind of okay to be so base and creepy and nasty. And I think people that comment on those stories in that way can carry that into their real life.
I want to say, I used to say, when you and I discussed this on the air 6 or 7 years ago or more, my position is sort of what Renee Graham would say, which is a lot of the things that are said in the comments section would never be said by people out loud. that's changed, obviously. You're permitted to be a far less decent human being based upon the direction our country has taken in the last couple of years. However, I agree with you. I think it would cut down on some of the hate. Brian McCreath, who obviously is the former editor of the Globe and is now head of the journalism department of BU, he was with us on Monday when you were out, Marjorie. And I can't remember, it was either Shirley Leung or I asked Brian about the comments sections, and here's what Brian had to say.
You have to be a subscriber to the Globe to be able to comment on a story or column. But that doesn't do nearly as much as one would hope it does in terms of cleaning up the level of discourse in these. So I'm torn. You're trying to build a sense of community on your website. At the same time, you're constantly facing a battle and how quickly these things go into the gutter.
That's Brian McCreath, 877-301-8970. You know what I meant to mention to you when we were having a meeting preparing the show this morning?
What?
There's a new column in the Globe. I think today was the first, it's not a column, a section in the Globe. I think today was day one. It's about weddings. Did you read the thing this morning? And it's actually a beautiful description of this couple. I think they met in Seattle, and it's very detailed and pretty long, and it's really good. And there were comments. And I almost decided, because the story was so uplifting and the two people sounded so terrific, maybe I won't read them because they're going to be brutalizing how they look, what they did. It was a multicultural kind of thing, too. The wife was from South Korea. The husband was a white guy. You know they're going to go after that. And much to my amazement, there were 15 comments this morning because it had just been posted, which is not much.
Yeah.
15 out of 15 were positive. I've never had that experience ever before.
I have a theory.
What is it? They
were women commentators.
What's possible? It's possible.
I think men can be a lot more vicious. And, I'm from West Bridgewater, who disagrees with us politically, but he calls and texts all the time.
He's great.
He said, keep the comments, but lose the anonymity. If you want to say something, you should own it. And I'm exactly where he is. It's just kind of these troll kind of things that get really ugly.
Well, also, it turns out this is the people who are the worst generally, because I do read all the comments on every story I read, is often are regulars. Because when you'll see a commenter responding to a commenter, they often say, you said the exact same thing yesterday or the day before. Do you remember?
They get in fights with each other.
Well, Schilling for the Red Sox was a great pitcher. He was not such a great person when it came to dealing with other human beings. But do you remember, he did a great thing. Do you remember that his daughter, who I think got a softball scholarship or something to some college, was celebrated on Twitter, and somebody put some disgusting things, and he tracked them down. And I sort of loved it and exposed them. And Jamie, do you mind checking this? I'm pretty sure the guy may have even been fired when his employer found out that he had tweeted such disgustingly misogynistic things about Curt Schilling's daughter. But you shouldn't have to do that. You shouldn't have to do that. So what's your position on comments? And by the way, if you are somebody, I don't post comments ever. I'm sure Marjorie doesn't. Do you? And if you do, why? And what kind of commenter are you? And whether you're a commenter or not, how do you feel about the comment section? One would argue, I said this at the beginning, Marjorie, as disgusting as some of it is a part of our world this year, and maybe it's better that they be outed, even if it's anonymously, so people can respond.
Well, Jim, did you mention the obituaries?
No, I did not.
Yeah, that comments aren't allowed in a lot of newspapers on obituaries because they're afraid that they'll be so vicious about the dead person. So they've decided in a lot of newspapers that is a bridge too far. But I must admit, in some stories, it's fun. I mean, if you're doing something, Beth Teitel is a great humor writer in the Globe, and often I'll read the comments on her stories because often they're very funny, and people will just talk about their own neurotic habits or their efforts to quit drinking or lose weight or whatever they're trying to do, and they're pretty funny. So those I sometimes like to read, and I also would like to read to see if it's something that's a straight political story that probably is not going to get too far in the gutter, what people about something, say, the legislature is going to do, or something like that. Those tend to be a little bit of a higher level. But one last thing, I remember when we could identify, when you used to get emails from people, And
You mean
sometimes I would
pre-comment sections when they just
Yes.
emailed you, right? Yeah.
And sometimes somebody would email me and call me the most horrible things in the world, and I just emailed them back, and they were usually stunned, they were usually embarrassed, but sometimes we would come to a rapprochement.
That's
It's
exactly
funny
what
how-
Renee Graham said. She used to respond to every email or whatever it was. Yeah.
I think she's right, and I think that's a better way to handle things.
By the way, I
Anyway,
forgot one very important. By the way, the Schilling
What?
update, Jamie, thank you. According to CBS News, 2 people who were responsible for the tweets about his kid were apparently fired from their jobs as a result. One was a disc jockey at a local community college in Jersey, and the other was a part-time ticket seller for the Yankees. I forgot the most important part of this story is one of the sweetest, I hate that word, one of the most, I hate charming too. One of the great columns that Marjorie ever wrote was on Christmas about 400 years ago at the Herald. And there was
my
a
dog.
full-page picture of Marjorie with her dog, Harry the P, best dog from sea to sea. Marjorie's sitting in her house somewhere, and and it was the sweetest dog. And this beautiful little
10
dog
pound,
is
10
sitting in
pound
her
little
lap.
dog.
And it was right
Yep.
after that. What was the name of that book that came out that was so huge?
Oh, it was the movie. It was
Marley
the
and Me.
movie.
Thank you, Aiden.
Marley and Me.
Okay, so it comes
that
out.
was a real great movie.
Marjorie
Tearjerker.
writes this beautiful, idyllic story about her relationship with her dog. And I have to say, well, I wouldn't make fun of Marjorie about anything. Even I didn't make fun of this because it was so, it was such a wonderful holiday story. Marjorie didn't read the comments. I did. Almost every comment was the most vicious, sadistic, sexually, well, I don't even know what the word is to go with that.
Jim,
it was grotesque.
By the third comment, I was having sex with my dog.
No, that's exactly what I was trying to say. That's exactly what it said.
That's why you couldn't read them, because they were so ridiculous and kind of a big waste of time. But anyway, Lincoln from Whitensville, what do you think, Lincoln?
Hey, Lincoln, how are you?
Hi, good morning, guys. And I actually just sent in an email for you guys to look at, giving my compliments. I'm a new listener. I love the show. I love
Fabulous.
You guys.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
I wanted to weigh in and say that I'm 53. I'm not on social media. I think that's a sport, bad thing for society. But I like the newspaper comment section online. It gives me a good pulse of the community's reaction.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
and
that's
you
true.
Get that on social media, but I don't. But I'll relate a story about it. I once tried a case against the city where there was a car crash between a rookie police officer and the car of my client. They were all it was 3 driver and 2 passengers. They were all Haitian immigrants leaving work, and they were alleged to have made an improper left in front of the rookie cop. We were alleging the rookie cop was speeding and ran a red light, and the jury ended up ruling in our favor, and we won. And kind of nobody expected it, but we did a good job at the trial. And the story on the verdict, which I was very interested to read, I was reading the comments, and there was a lot of hate about Haitian immigrants. It was about 50, and taking away our tax dollars with this verdict and everything else. And then one comment, I was on the jury, and let me tell you, the evidence was this, and I was scared to death that the juror was going to say something that the jury did that they're not supposed to do, like go to the scene or look up news stories on the crime. She didn't. She defended the verdict and victims and everything. But that was just a very scary moment.
Hey, Lincoln.
One last thing I'll say.
Quickly, because your connection is horrible, but go ahead.
Okay. I found the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and I think the Washington Post do a good job at letting the readers filter the comments by recommending them. So if you want to, you can just
very good
comments. And that excludes a lot of the hate, I think. But
Hey, Lincoln,
anyway, great show, guys. Thank
welcome
you so
to
much.
the show. That was very kind. Call us again soon. And as I said, welcome to the show. 877-301-8097. I would say, and I know that you intimated this when you talked about men before, columns written by or about women or people of color are generally the ones where the comments are most nauseating. And places like the Globe, they're so nauseating at some point, even though it's a free speech platform, that you'll see almost every other one deleted by the editor of the section.
Comment
I don't know
blocked.
Either it's inappropriate or whatever they said, or that sort of thing. But
you know, I just want to mention we get texts, hundreds of them every day, and the vast majority of our texts are good. I mean, we have a couple of people, oh, Marjorie, you're an idiot, or Jim, you're this or something, but, really kind of below the belt. But most of them are pretty good.
A lot of people are texting saying, like Lance and Lynn, BPR is my comments section. Anonymously yours, Lance. Too late, Lance. That is sort of interesting. Isn't it that the vast majority of people who text our show are not, even if they're critical, they're not behaving in a totally inappropriate way.
Well, I think it's different because I think that you feel differently about people on the radio than you do about people in newspapers or even on TV.
Because you feel a connection, even if you don't like them, kind of thing. I agree with that. I agree with that. 877-301-8970. We were inspired by a terrific column by a terrific columnist. Renee Graham wrote the other day why she'd cut off comments, or asked the paper. Brian must have been the one who agreed to this. I think he was the editor then, not sure, to end the comments on her stories because of the misogyny, the racism, the hate in general. And we want to know how you feel about comments in 2025 on lots of different forums. Where do you want to go, Marjorie?
Anne in the car. Thank you for calling.
Hey.
Hi, Jim. Hi, Marjorie. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
So I haven't commented in a newspaper to a column in a long time, but during the 2008 election, I was obsessed with won the election and the New York Times opinion page. And I commented all the time, like multiple times a day. And my goal, I made it a game because I wanted to get editors' picks. And so I mastered it in terms of making it short and funny.
And you got picked?
Yes. Often,
there you go.
Often. I was very proud. I was very proud of myself.
And what kind of responses did other commenters have about your comments, Anne?
Everyone just was focused on their comments.
Oh, good. That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. So I used to call in the radio talk shows when I was in college for the same sort of reason. And when they said you had a good call, it was a very good feeling. And thank you for a good call. We appreciate it.
Yeah, and the Globe does this too. They have the best columns, the best comments at the top, the newest comments at the top, the oldest comments at the top. Sometimes they differentiate between the worst ones and the best ones. Here's a couple of comments. Speaking of comments, this is a person who says, comments are my stress relief. While I rarely comment, I love reading them, learning from the astute ones and howling at the ridiculous, not knowing if it's sincere or a saboteur. Plus, they love the typos and the punctuation. And then if someone says anything in the paper on Michelle Wu or Ayanna Pressley, get the nastiest comments.
I agree with that.
As to anything they post on Facebook, I say get rid of them. They're never constructive and always far-right crazies. And then somebody else is talking about, this is Ben from Chicopee, freedom of speech is our constitutional right. Anonymity is not mentioned in the Constitution. Cowardice is a choice.
Well, you don't have a right, by the way, you have a right to speak. You don't have a right to have your speech appear in a newspaper.
No, you don't.
We're not saying, obviously you can say anything you want on a street corner or outside or wherever you are. This is a different, there's a moderator essentially, and the moderator is either Twitter which is not a moderator anymore, but maybe Reddit or a newspaper or something.
And by the way, it's amazing. Obviously, newspapers don't get the same amount of comments as X does, formerly Twitter or Facebook or these other huge platforms. But isn't it interesting that papers, which are struggling, because that's the fate of newspapers today, can manage to modify their comments and take out the worst ones, but X and Facebook just can't be bothered.
Well, they don't want to. By the way, we're going to, throughout the day, we're going to take a break. Before we do, we're going to bring you up to speed as best we can on the back and forth. RFK Jr., a day after he is excoriated by his first cousin, Caroline Kennedy, as a predator, and worse, actually, is testifying at the confirmation hearing for him to run HHS. Here's just a little piece. Here's a clip of him claiming not to be anti-vaccine, even though Caroline Kennedy had a great line. He vaccinated all his kids,
children,
while at the same time he's convincing other parents to put their kids at risk by not vaccinating him. Protesters interrupt his claim by loudly chanting against him. And then here you go. Listen to this.
Before I conclude, I want to make sure the committee is clear about a few things. News reports have claimed that I'm anti-vaccine or anti-industry. I am neither. I am pro-safety.
There's a lie in the background, and obviously the chair of the committee is banging the gavel and is, to quote Caroline Kennedy, has misrepresented, lied, and cheated his way through life, and he was doing a little bit more of that right there with Cheryl Hines, by the way. You're always asking, how does Cheryl Hines feel? Curb Your Enthusiasm, his wife sitting right over his right shoulder in the front row, Marjorie.
Yeah, well, Caroline Kennedy talked about his charisma and his ability to dupe people and con people, and she accused him of profiting off the assassination of his uncle and his father.
Yes, she did.
That was really pretty, that was tough stuff. Anyway, Mark in the car.
We're taking
what do you
a break.
think,
Mark, you got to wait a minute.
We're taking a break. I'm sorry, Mark. We're taking a break. We'll be right back. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, broadcasting from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
The Russian government is increasing censorship and internet surveillance. For older Russians, it's a visceral reminder of the Soviet past.
I remember Soviet Union. I remember that times. I definitely do not want to go back.
What's at stake online for Russia and the latest global news next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Subaru of New England. This winter, the all-wheel drive 2025 Subaru Forester is committed to keeping your loved ones safe on snowy roads. You can find your Subaru retailer at SubaruofNewEngland.com. And the Skating Club of Boston, presenting the ISU World Figure Skating Championships with over 300 athletes competing at TD Garden March 25th through 30th for the title of World Champion. Tickets at ISUWorlds2025.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan is zooming in. She's recovering from her norovirus bout. I'm at the library. We're both streaming youtube.com/GBH News. If you're just tuning in, we're talking about the comments sections online, often cesspools of anonymous hate. On the other hand, is there a public good in reading it, even if it is full of hate? Give us a call or text our anonymous comment line at 877-301-8970. Before we get back to the calls, we promised we'd keep you up to date on the RFK Jr. hearing. Here is RFK Jr. Denying to Colorado Senator Bennett that he suggested chemicals in the water impact the sexuality of children, followed by a clip from RFK Jr. on Jordan Peterson's podcast saying exactly the thing that he denies ever having said. Here it is.
Did you say that exposure to pesticides causes children to become transgender?
No, I never said that. I think a lot of the problems we see in kids, and particularly boys, it's probably underappreciated that how much of that is coming from chemical exposures, including a lot of the sexual dysphoria that we're seeing.
Whoever gave that to us, what did he say afterwards, after he's proven to have lied, 10 seconds after he said he never said? We'll find out for that. That's pretty dramatic stuff. 877-301-8970. Mark, Marjorie called on you and I interrupted, so welcome back.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
My
Mark
fault.
in the car, thank you for waiting.
Hey, good morning.
You too.
Hi.
So I don't understand why they have the comment section. I've never thought they were any good. I understand the free speech, but when newspapers were in print only, people couldn't respond instantly and anonymously like that. And I don't think they add to the conversation, especially with all of this vile nonsense that so many people are spewing. But in regard to this column, I actually wrote an email to Renee Graham thanking her for it and pleading with her to get her colleagues to do the same. And she responded to me that they actually want to have comments in their columns. She didn't go into reasons why, but apparently some of the columnists don't mind having that ridiculous back and forth. I just don't see the point. I don't think it does any good for anybody, for anyone to just get up there. Any idiot with a keyboard can speak his mind now.
By the way, I love that you wrote Renee, and I love that she wrote you back. And by the way, what you made me think of, Mark? Because things are online, you also can write a letter to the editor. And unlike in the old days, waiting a week till you see if it gets in the paper, if the letter's editor likes it, it could be up almost as fast as a comment. And there you do have to identify yourself so that maybe, You made some good points. Mark, thank you for sharing your exchange with Renee with us. We appreciate it. Thanks.
Here's a comment from Jean who says, comment sections give us a voice which is more important now than ever. We can fight for rights, etc., against the hateful MAGA. We need a voice or all is lost. So she feels it's an opportunity to get her voice out there.
By the way, Irene Monroe, the Reverend Irene Monroe, who, by the way, won the Embrace Boston MLK Awards, she and her wife, Dr. Thea James, were among the honorees, and she's probably texting because she's upset that Emmett's on the show today, and she's not. She texts, we cannot be indifferent about hate speech. Language is a representation of culture. It perpetuates ideas and assumptions about race, gender, religion, and sexual orientation that we consciously and unconsciously articulate in our everyday conversations about ourselves and the rest of the world, and consequently transmit generationally. The comment section should be a portal to further the hate. I'd get rid of the comment section. There's Irene Monroe.
Yeah, well, she's right. I mean, it's particularly vicious on race. I mean, it's I think that's fairly obvious. And I think if you're Renee Graham, a woman and a black woman, it can weigh you down to have to read this stuff if you do read it. I mean, that's why I never read them, because what was the point? It was like a misogynistic exercise.
Well, you didn't have to read them because I was reading them, so you were fine.
Or a masochistic exercise is what I should have said.
If you read it, it would be masochistic, right?
That's right. That's right.
Right. I read it because I was sadistic. That's what you meant to say. I am drawn to them. What's that expression? Like moth to a fire?
Jim,
I just can't resist.
I want you to know that probably about 10 of my friends told me they read the comments on my columns and maybe never even read the column, so you weren't the only one.
No, but I actually read your column. I just read it second.
Thank you.
I read it second is what I did. Okay.
Ellen in the car, thank you for calling.
Good morning, guys. How are you? Just wanted to say that I can't speak at all really for social media because I'm not really on it. Very, very rarely on it. But I do read the comments in newspapers, and I think they're invaluable for this reason. Although they are disgusting sometimes, you get to see the pushback. You also get to see the actual, entirety of what society is going through. So you can use it as opposition research, and you can also tend to see where it comes into your everyday rhetoric. So you can combat it in that everyday scenario. So sometimes you'll see something that is really, really vicious, and then you'll hear it in your neighborhood, and you'll have a very quick counter comment to that.
I think
we didn't pay enough attention to all those awful comments that were coming in as Democrats.
I like your
That's
point
a
of
good
view,
point.
Ellen. I like that. Thank you. Can I read a couple of texts, Marjorie?
Sure.
Ed from Waltham says, I think a breathalyzer test to unlock your computer would cut down nasty comments by 50%. That's pretty funny. Ed. Chris from Shrewsbury texts, the comments section in your, meaning BPR's, YouTube live feed has become a neat little community for several of us watching that stream. I think it's a good example of a good comment section. That said, not all comment sections can be as good as yours. Wow. So
I know,
it definitely isn't
the
black
comments
and white.
here are 95% nicer than the ones I got at the Herald.
Really?
Yes.
That's because
much
I'm here,
nicer.
I guess,
It was tough reading at the old Herald.
Okay, fine.
Let's go to Kate from Bridgewater. Hi, Kate.
Better that way. Go ahead. Hi, Kate.
Hi.
How are you?
Can you hear me okay? My garage door is
Perfectly.
shutting
Perfectly. What's
All
up?
right. So I just wanted to weigh in on the fact that these comment sections sometimes serve as whistleblower avenues for people in communities that know what's going on but are afraid, whether they work for municipal government or something, to say something. And I was told by a reporter, I was working on a community project, that they learn a lot. It was like some, opposition research, some intel, and that information is shared because the people, they can't say it anywhere else, and they don't want to sign their name lest they get in trouble. And that has come through. But things have changed now with fake news and these bots and trolls. I agree with that. And so moderation is the best way to do that, to just do away with the hate stuff, the racist stuff, the attack, the personality, and, give people a chance to share information on the topic.
Kate, thanks for your thoughts. We appreciate it.
That's a good point, too. I mean, the whistleblower thing, I get that completely, right?
Yeah, but the more I think about this, though, the caller said a couple of minutes ago, you get exposed to what's real. People are thinking this, and many people, including a president, are acting upon this kind of thinking. And so it's painful. I mean, I totally respect and support what Renee Graham did for herself, but I think I'd be in the position, of those other columnists of the Globe, according to the text. So there's some value in that, even though I'm sure it's painful for a lot of people.
The comment section is the best way to find out what the temperature is on various subjects. Also, it's downright hysterical in there. It's not all just people being mean. There's people making good jokes and people who seem like they just woke up from a 20-year nap.
Well, they're also, let me be as kind as possible. They're also some of the dumbest people on the planet commenting on the am I allowed to say that? I think, yeah, some of the dumbest people. Not everybody, and not even a majority, but there is a slice of that. We're done, Marjorie.
We are done. Okay, we are moving on, because up next we're going to be talking with Jared Bowen about, of course, arts and culture. He's going to tell us, we'll find out when he gets here, because
which means Marjorie will find out. She has no idea what Jared's here for.
I have no idea what he's talking about, but he's going to be talking about something up next. Jared Bowen from The Culture Show. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show, everyone told Fanny Brice she'd never be a star, but then something funny happened, as we find in the beloved bittersweet romantic comedy Funny Girl coming to town by way of Broadway in Boston. Plus, the landmark architecture of Boston gets its due in a new exhibition at the Boston Athenaeum, featuring the lush illustrations of Frank Constantino. Tune in for that and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Krakow-Wittgen Gallery, exhibiting works by Mel Bachner, Victoria Berge, Danielle Buren, and Abelardo Morel. On view now on Newbury Street. You can explore this and other contemporary art at KrakowWittgenGallery.com. And Boston Medical Center, committed to delivering medical excellence that empowers all patients. Learn more about how BMC's team of experts is rewriting healthcare for cancer, sickle cell, and beyond at bmc.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Marjorie Egan and Jim Braude. Marjorie's on Zoom. She's recovering from her illness. She'll be physically here on Friday at the library. I am at the library, and we're both streaming youtube.com/GBH News. We're joined now by Jared Bowen, and I have to say I'm with Marjorie. I have no idea why he's here. I'm not even sure who he is, actually. But it says on my script he's the executive arts editor for GBH News, host of The Culture Show. It airs daily at 2. That part I knew right after us on 89.7 GBH. Why are you here, actually, Jared?
I have no idea.
He's here because now that I have my notes in front of me, he has this great story about the famed Mona Lisa
I love this too.
Tell us about what's going on over at the Louvre with Mona Lisa.
Yeah, they're putting her in the basement. I mean, that's largely what's happening. So we've talked about this, that if you've been to the Louvre in the last probably decade or so, you understand that there are huge crowds. We know the travel is happening all over the world, and cities are getting overrun. Barcelona in particular is really unhappy with the high volume of tourists and how it's changing things. But this is happening in museums to some regard too. And so Emmanuel Macron this week went to the Louvre, and he made an announcement that they're going to be making hundreds of millions of dollars in renovations at the Louvre, because they say that it's taking its toll how many tourists are there, and they're having water leaks and other problems. But one of the main issues is just the huge lines of people beelining to see the Mona Lisa. So now they're going to give her her own room. They'll move her downstairs, so basically in a basement space. Of course, it will look lovely, but they're going to recreate or create a new entrance at the side of the Louvre, but just change the whole dynamic of that experience. Because I think we've also talked about this on the show, that so many people just show up and they just want to take the selfies. And I went to the Louvre last year and saw the Mona Lisa and was quite struck by the Leonardo da Vinci paintings that hang outside that gallery that everybody just races by, that are as beautiful as the Mona Lisa, but nobody cares.
Well, you know what's incredible? This New York Times story that we're all working from, this was so depressing to me. It said 80% of the people who go cite their reason is not because of the tens of thousands of wonderful works of art, but because of one painting. And I'm not saying the Mona Lisa is not brilliant and whatever, but 80% go. It's sort of like a fad, like kind of. That's number one. Number two, you've seen the Mona Lisa in the Louvre, I assume, Marjorie?
Yes, and it's small. It's very small.
Well, it's
and
not
I think when I saw it, I was surprised that it was so small. And I think a lot of people, frankly, are let down because they kind of think it's going to be like seeing Michelangelo's David or something in Florence, and there's this little tiny picture of the Mona Lisa. You know what I mean?
I was also depressed because the eyes didn't move. And the ones I've seen, the eyes move and follow you. No, you can't even see the damn thing. I think I've been there twice in the last 2 years. There's so many people. And what I don't understand is if they give it its own room, why is that going to change? There's still going to be so many people just in a space of its own, right?
Well, they haven't discussed that, and I'm hoping they are taking that into consideration because I think the same thing. Obviously, it's a beautiful painting, and we've seen the renderings. We just saw Ken Burns' fabulous documentary about Leonardo da Vinci.
One of the greats ever.
Took us all through all the science that he was infusing in the Mona Lisa. And there is a reason that it is so alluring to people, and part of it is because, as one of the experts in that documentary rightly described, it's as much about seeing his figures live. You can almost see them breathing. That's how vivid his portraits are. So this is why it resonates. But it is a small painting, and the barrier is so far now, and the climate protesters targeting museums with soup and potato paste are not helping this at all. But I hope that they can find a way to get people to be much closer to the painting.
You know, Jamie just reminded me, I don't know if this is a stunt. By the way, a lot of people in France are saying Macron's getting involved as a stunt because his numbers are astronomically, well, that's the opposite of what I mean, are absolutely horrible. And he's trying to glom onto the Louvre on his way out. But also, Jamie just reminded me, there's some culture minister in Italy who is saying the Louvre is in such decay, which is a little bit of an exaggeration, but there are problems. It should be returned to Italy where it can be restored to its rightful place with a level of respect. And that's a stunt, right?
Well, it's a somewhat compelling argument. I mean, I don't think that the Mona Lisa is ever going to go on the road again, and she has in the past. She came to the United States in the 60s. I think it was part of the Kennedy administration. We know what proponents they were of art. It didn't come to Boston, sadly. I think it went to D.C. and to New York. But they're making the argument, this is somebody from Milan who is saying, because Leonardo da Vinci spent so many years, decades of his life in Milan, of course, that's where the Last Supper is, that while this renovation is going to happen, send her to us for a little while. We promise we'll give her back. But yeah, let's have her come live with us for a little while. So I think it's a way to draw attention to themselves. And there is also the conversation about the history of the painting, but he ended his life in France. I think the documents show that it was rightfully acquired by the French, so it's not a repatriation issue.
Marjorie's really upset because it's so small.
Well, it is small. I mean, I just remember somehow when I went to see it, I expected it to be a little bit more grandiose. I mean, it's an incredible painting, obviously, the expression on her face and all that, but it was just much smaller than I thought. But
a texter just said, Marjorie, don't be a size queen about the Mona Lisa. I think that is a very valid criticism.
That's a good
point.
Ahead. So I love this story. I think this was the style section of the Washington Post. About why don't we have more intermissions in these really long movies that go on forever? And what do you think, Jared?
I think in the right context. So this all came about because The Brutalist is about 3 hours, 3.5 hours, 3 hours, 45 minutes, something like that. And it has an old-fashioned Lawrence of Arabia-esque intermission in the middle of it, which I appreciated. I think we all like to take a little break, especially if you have 3 hours and 45 minutes. A bathroom break is always very helpful. A little snack break is always helpful. The director, actually, when asked about this, I think by the Hollywood Reporter, said there are other things you can do in your 15-minute intermission. He kind of used that lightly. But I think if you make it an event, if you make a movie an event and you have an intermission, I think it's really helpful and it's really useful and it's a way to get people back to the theater. But this shouldn't happen with every... What are you guys texting?
Jamie,
I'm going to call out Jim and Jamie right now.
Jamie's goal is to so distract me from the content. It's all he does every day. It used to be he'd put up AI images of me that were humiliating. He says, we're talking about intermission. That's why we have NPR News at 12 o'clock and 1 on NPR.
That's right.
That's our intermission.
We're very grateful grateful for it.
Because
are we
it's
not?
our intermission, exactly.
That's right.
Okay, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
See, Marjorie, the boys are playing while I'm trying
not
to talk,
playing.
and they're
He's
just
playing.
laughing over
I'm
here.
not playing. Go ahead.
So anyway, so I don't think if you have the Avengers or something, does that really need an intermission? It doesn't feel like that. But I think when it's an event, yeah, of course, because it's not unlike a Broadway show. I think it's not unlike a museum exhibition, where I think museums are so well designed that when you come out of these exhibitions
That's an
now,
excellent point.
you have a moment to look out the window and see something before going into your next gallery.
So in this Washington Post piece, they make the point, this is a bit of a simplified version. Intermissions used to be the norm with the long movies, like I was going to mention Lawrence of Arabia with Peter O'Toole, one of the most beautiful movies ever, and it was like 3 hours long. And then they got rid of them, and now in limited fashion, they're coming back, and there's some big debate. I went to see The Irishman, Martin Scorsese's thing, at a theater in the Seaport that has since closed. And The Irishman, if you saw it, was like 9 hours long or something, or 3.5 or 3 something. I fell asleep like twice in the middle of the damn movie. And
So embarrassing.
Well, you know, they have those seats that recline at those
Snoring
new theaters,
in
by
the
the way.
theater.
I wasn't snoring. I was in front of Ron Della Chiesa, and he
really?
just by chance, he woke me up. So it worked out quite fine, actually. But what's wrong with that? I mean, why?
Well, it's really,
is it the director
is
like
the director.
offended because his or her work is not to be intermissioned? Is that what it is?
That director was Martin Scorsese, because he
was.
Then he did Killers of the Flower Moon, which was 198 minutes.
Oh, my God.
It was in theaters before it was on Apple. I watched it at home, so I could take all the intermissions I wanted. But in the theaters, they wouldn't allow an intermission. Some theater owners went ahead and created one to the risk of being penalized by whatever authorities are in charge of film distribution and projection. But they did that because they knew that audiences wanted it. Also, it helps the theaters. We're trying to get people back into the theater. I don't know the last time both of you went, but the theaters are not very full, at least every time I've gone. But if you can create a comfortable experience and it helps drive people to concessions and whatnot during the break, it helps.
We went like about, did you go to 6 when I went to 6, or did you? I can't remember.
Me?
Did you go to 6 or you didn't?
No,
but
I
that's
don't
a
think I
theater
went.
show.
What?
No.
That's a theater show.
You said a theater. Oh, you're talking about a movie. Oh, I'm
theater.
sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I remember seeing Oppenheimer in the theater, and that was long.
That was 3 hours, right?
Yeah, but somehow that didn't seem long to me. It seemed to move pretty quickly.
You know what gets me through? Eating in the movie. Do you do that? That's a joke for those who are not frequent fans of our show. We're talking to Jared Bowen.
Okay, so this Ain't No Mo sounds absolutely fantastic. As a matter of fact, we have a little clip of this theater production. Want to play the clip before we talk about it?
Well, it's not a clip of the production. It's a clip of Jordan Cooper, E. Cooper, on the Culture Show.
That's right.
Just yesterday.
Excuse me.
It's okay.
Excuse me.
Talking about the You've been ill. Talking about the inspiration behind the story of Ain't No Mo. Here he is.
Then I had my own run-in with a police officer at 7-Eleven one time where I was reaching up for the slushy nozzle, and I guess I don't know what he thought I was doing, but he reached for his gun, and I kind of put my hands up, and he kind of nodded and walked away. And I remember going back home thinking like, wow, I really could have died over this nasty ass slushy. And thinking that, like, you know, that frustration of why do we put up with this? Why do we put up with injustice, right? What if we all just got on a plane and said deuces? What if we all just left, right?
That is a fabulous clip, by the way. That is a fabulous clip. So what's the play about?
So he extends that. So the concept of this play, Ain't No Mo, which is at the Speakeasy Stage Company and Front Porch Arts Collective, are presenting it at the Calderwood Pavilion through February 8th. It's the concept, what if all the black people in America just left? All of them got on a plane, had a one-way ticket to Africa, piloted by Barack Obama, and just left and deposited all of the heritage, everything that they brought to this country in terms of music and intellect and writings, just deposited in Miss Bag. That's his name of this bag that's on the stage. And then that would ultimately be taken with them, and anybody who turns around, like Eurydice, turns around and looks back, will turn white and have to stay. So this is the through line, but it's told through really a whole amalgamation of sketch comedy. So Jordan Cooper, whom we just heard, is hilarious. He was only 27 when he had this produced on Broadway, and it made him the youngest black playwright ever to have a piece produced on Broadway. It had a number of Tony nominations, and it is really, really funny because, of course, this concept, which is outrageously funny but also not funny, especially when you hear his own context of why this got him to arrive at this concept, is also meted out in, for instance, they have a sketch comedy bit about the real baby mamas of the South Side and this performative nature of reality television and the characters that people portray on television versus who they are in real life. We have a family, too, who is reconciling their accumulating a lot of wealth and deleting their blackness along the way, and so why would they move? So he, as he also pointed out in that interview yesterday, he's punching at all different sides, at all different types, at all different peoples to have this conversation. It's
Is
very
this the
provocative.
play that Donald Coyne wrote in the Globe that
Yes.
didn't do well on Broadway? Is that, I mean, even though it was nominated, it didn't last long.
Lasted 3
But then he
weeks.
made a wonderful point, I hope this is the right one, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, about theaters in Boston. One, when you go in and you haven't spent $600 for a ticket, it's a whole different thing. Plus it's a smaller theater for the most part. All things that totally change your relationship with the players in the show. Do you buy that?
I think that's absolutely true. And I think one of the great things about seeing this, and especially in a small theater, is the discomfort. You know, especially if you're sitting there
That's
as a white
wonderful
person.
point, yeah.
This is kind of funny. I think it's kind of funny. Am I allowed to laugh? Am I not allowed to laugh? But as he was pointing out, that's for everybody to decide at the same time. But I love how he uses humor too. He also started off that interview yesterday by saying he's somebody who laughs at funerals, and you have to find humor we all have to find humor, at least that's what I also believe, to work our way through life.
Well, you mentioned the Donald Coyne review in the Globe. He's such a great critic. He writes so well. And he called this a combination of knockabout comedy, stiletto-sharp satire, scalding fury, the kind of abrupt transitions where your laugh dies in your throat. I thought that was so great. I mean, he obviously thinks it's fantastic.
It was fantastic. I have to say, there was a few cast members who I had not seen before, and that was great to see happen. Don Simmons, a director who I think just belongs on Broadway. It has to only be a matter of time before she's going to be directing on Broadway because she's so talented. Everything she does here in the Boston area, the way this is all presented, I think it all comes together really, really well.
You know, an anonymous texter says on our prior topic, the movies don't need intermissions, they need editors. They are too long because they're too pretentious. I should have said that. Amen. I know you're going to say this movie needed to be 3 hours. No movie needs to be 3 hours. Okay, let's move on.
I do disagree.
Peter Pan. Peter Pan.
Same interviewer didn't. Reviewer didn't.
How
like
do you feel
Donald
about
Coyne.
Yeah, I struggled with this one somewhat. So this is by way of Broadway in Boston. It's on stage through February 2nd at the Citizens Opera House, and it is the classic musical, although not so classic. It has been updated by Larissa Fasthorse, a playwright who has looked at some of the problematic elements of Peter Pan. I have to say I don't remember them. I don't think I've seen this since I was a kid, and I saw the animated version. But there is the character Tiger Lily, who is an indigenous character. They tried to take out the violence portrayed by indigenous communities in Peter Pan, because obviously that doesn't hold up well at this time. We think about things much differently. But I think they almost want to have it both ways because it is advanced so that when we first go into the Darling family's home, we find a girl on social media and she wants to be an influencer, and so we very much clearly understand that we're in 2025. However, at the same time, when Wendy Darling wakes up and finds a boy in her bedroom, she's not at all alarmed. So I think they need to move a little bit more in the adaptation. I do think that this is like one of those old-fashioned children's adventure books where you see each page and it kind of holds your attention. So the flying is great, the fairy, Tinkerbell, and saving her is great, and the sword fights are great, but you put it back on the shelf and you don't really remember it after.
Mary Martin's dead, right?
She's dead. She's pretty dead.
Okay. Mary Martin, for those, when we were kids, Mary Martin was Peter Pan. It was almost like interchangeable.
But they said, O'Coyne did say that the kids liked it. So if
he doesn't quite go that far. I think he says, I have to sort of say they seem to be. Didn't he say they seem to be liking it?
Seem to enjoy it.
Seem. Well, seem is not exactly.
I was seated right across from Don, so we had the same audience, and I thought even in the moment where you're trying to revive Tinkerbell, there wasn't a thunderous applause for her, so I think she only got a heartbeat and a half to get back.
Well,
to
go see it. Make
again.
your own decision.
Poor
if you got a kid.
Although I will say, Nolan Almeida plays Peter Pan. He's a high school student.
He is?
I can't remember the last time I saw a professional production where you saw a high school student as a star, and he is pretty compelling.
Is there a high school? Wasn't there a great high school student? I have the wrong play. What's the name of the play where that brilliant 21-year-old performer sang Creep in our studio a cappella. What was that called?
Oh my God.
That was one of the best things.
Fat Ham.
In years. Was there not a high school? Was there a high school? Whatever.
I don't know.
Okay, before we go to the next thing, Marjorie, you wanted an opportunity to thank Jared for
I did.
help. So do it.
I did. You recommended the Titanic exhibit. You know, in my house, we probably watched that movie, the newer version with Leonardo DiCaprio, about 20 times. The exhibit that they have, we went last weekend, and it was incredibly good. I mean, people should go see. If you're into the Titanic, I mean, they recreated that whole staircase. You can walk down a first-class hallway. You know, on the ship, you can see what the first-class suites look like, and the third class. It was really well done.
And I think that I'm still thinking about the cigarettes that I saw in that exhibition. I mean, to know that these cigarettes were in somebody's possession in their case, which they loved, and then it went to the bottom of the sea. And then the fact, and I think cigarettes for me, because it's so inconceivable that cigarettes, paper and tobacco, could survive on the bottom of the sea for all that time, but to be brought back up, and then understand that this isn't something that's at all abstract. It isn't totally the fiction that we know from the Titanic film, but that these are the belongings of people who had this horrible, just disastrous, devastating experience, and it changes everything to come face to face with those pieces. And as you know, as you can touch it too, because you can touch that one piece of the Titanic.
You can touch a piece of Titanic, and they have this big iceberg in there to give you a sense of how cold it was in the water. It's really worth it. I thought it was great.
You're allowed to touch that? Whatever you just described?
Oh, yeah.
We discussed before.
They have a little carved out piece so that you can touch it. And then I also agree with it's again, one thing to understand what 28 degrees was, which I guess was the temperature of the water in the Arctic. It's another to touch that and know that they were in that water for that amount of time.
By the way, the Titanic people will be on the show on Valentine's Day on February 14th, so that'll be good. And Carrie texts, actually, I should have brought this up. I'm embarrassed I didn't. Ask Jared where he got his sweater. My son would look very good in that. So for Carrie, who's texting, where'd you get the sweater?
As my father would say, at the store.
Where'd you get it?
I got it at Todd Snyder.
Where the hell's that? Who is that?
There's a one in the seaport.
Oh, you don't want to answer because it's like $500 or something? Is that why you're not answering?
I just answered it.
Okay,
I said Todd Snyder.
Answer it. Okay, so...
Jim, maybe you should think about that sweater.
Really... Okay, Jamie is like the happiest he's ever been. I mean... Get a life. I mean, he's okay. So what are you doing?
Where'd you get that Henley?
We're Land's End. Thank you very much. I've only got 30 more like it too. By the way, it was a big sale a couple of weeks ago.
We've seen them $12.99 times.
Thank you, Marjorie. So Jared, as I was saying, what are you doing this afternoon on that show? 2:00.
So we're going to be talking to Hannah Shankman, who plays Fanny Bryce in the incoming production of Funny Girl.
Excuse me. Who saw 17-year-old Barbara Streisand in Philadelphia in Funny Girl when no one knew who she was before it went to Broadway? That'd be correct.
The Henley
My mom and I, the Henley, I was wearing a Henley that day. I was wearing a Dickie that day, actually, Marjorie. It's funny. Oh, my God. I mean, why am I playing into this with her? But it was unbelievable. How is this? Have you seen this yet or hasn't opened yet?
Well, I saw it on Broadway with Leah Michele, and it was spectacular.
Well, she's pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
Is this woman a local woman or no?
Nope, she's a touring production. She grew up in New York.
Oh, what else do you have
and then
today?
we're going to be talking to Frank Costantino and Laura Graves. There's an exhibition of his architectural renderings and illustrations at the Boston Athenaeum. They're beautiful. And then Christine Gerke and Tony Fogg from the BSO. The BSO is having this major opera premiere for a 1920 piece that they have never shown. And so we will talk about that.
Great. And by the way, next time you're here, we did this a couple of years ago. You mentioned touching something in the Titanic. Let's have another discussion about when the guards aren't looking, touching sculpture. And how great that feels when you touch the same thing like Michelangelo or whatever. Okay. Jared, good to see you. We'll be listening at 2:00. Jared Bowen,
thank you.
Good to see you.
I love the sweater. Jared is Executive Arts Editor for GBH News, host of The Culture Show, which airs daily 2:00 right after us. No news at 2:00, right to The Culture Show, 89.7 GBH. Coming up after the new news, Harvard national security expert.
Boston Public Radio with Jim Braude and Marjorie Egan. Just ahead, more smart conversation about what's going on in our community. That's right after an NPR news break, here on GBH News 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Boston Symphony Orchestra, presenting Stravinsky's The Firebird, February 6th, 7th, and 8th at Symphony Hall. A wondrous experience conducted by Natalie Stutzman. More information at bso.org. on Nova's newest arrival. Follow the race to build a world-class airport on the site of one of America's busiest flying hubs. Catch Extreme Airport Engineering tonight at 9 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH, HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News, what matters to you?
Congress to have Mayor Michelle Wu testify on Boston's status as a sanctuary city. And Monday, when she was guest hosting, we heard a lot of tough talk from Shirley about decluttering her house before the Lunar New Year. Well, Shirley, time's up. We'll hold some truth to power and see how Shirley did next on the second hour of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump's nominee for Health and Human Services Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., is being grilled on stances that raise concerns on both sides of the aisle. Today, Kennedy flatly disputed the notion that he is anti-vaccine.
All of my kids are vaccinated. I've written many books on vaccines. My first book in 2014, the first line of it is, I am not anti-vaccine, and the last line is, I am not anti-vaccine.
But in a contentious exchange this morning, Democratic Senator Ron Wyden, the ranking member of the Finance Committee, disputed Kennedy's claims today.
In a podcast in 2020, you said, and I quote, you would do anything, pay anything to go back in time and not vaccinate your kids. Mr. Kennedy, all of these things cannot be true.
Kennedy was also asked about his abortion stance, which had raised concerns among conservatives. Democratic critics accuse him of walking back prior statements of support. The Trump administration is offering millions of federal workers the option to resign and continue to be paid through September. NPR's Asma Khalid reports on the effort to shrink the federal workforce.
The union that represents many federal workers has described the move as a purge of dedicated civil servants and says this offer should not be viewed as voluntary. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt disputes that characterization and says the effort is about the president's policy ending remote work.
This is a suggestion to federal workers that they have to return to work. And if they don't, then they have the option to resign.
A job in the federal government has long been seen as steady, stable work. But that's changed in the last week. The Trump administration wants to shrink government, and Trump also wants government workers in line with his vision. Asma Khalid, NPR News.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been invited to the White House. It's President Trump's first invitation to a foreign leader since returning to office. NPR's Daniel Estrin reports from Tel Aviv.
Netanyahu's office says the Israeli leader is invited to meet Trump in the White House next week on Tuesday. Trump and his Mideast envoy Steve Witkoff were instrumental in pressing Netanyahu to reach a ceasefire and hostage prisoner exchange with Hamas on the eve of Trump's inauguration. The Trump administration is urging Israel to extend the ceasefire. Netanyahu is under pressure from far-right allies to return to fighting in Gaza. Netanyahu is scheduled to testify 3 times a week in his corruption trial, and it's unclear if the Israeli court will grant him a reprieve for a White House visit. Daniel Estrin, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
At last check on Wall Street, the Nasdaq was down 123 points or more than 0.5%. You're listening to NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Don't look now, but public health officials say there are no less than 4 viruses floating around out there that are putting a big strain on local emergency rooms. The so-called quademic is a contagious combination of COVID-19, influenza, RSV, and the nasty stomach bug norovirus. According to the Mass Department of Public Health, the severity of influenza in the state is currently classified as moderate, with hospitalizations having increased 0.3% in the previous week. RSV level is considered very high. Wastewater data shows that COVID-19 activity is also very high. The CDC, meanwhile, says cases of norovirus are also on the increase. And health officials can't stress enough that we should continue to mask up and wash those hands. New data out today from the nation's report card shows Massachusetts reading scores have once again declined over the past 2 years. GBH's Tori Bedford has more from the report out from the National Assessment of Educational Progress.
The math and reading test is considered the gold standard assessment for 4th and 8th graders, and Massachusetts continues to lead the nation, but remains behind pre-pandemic scores, now nearly 5 years out. Reading for both groups showed a decline between 2022 and 2024, with 8th graders in Boston also sliding in math. The only notable increase statewide was 4th grade math, driven by higher performing students, as scores from lower performing students stayed the same. Tori Bedford, GBH News, 89.7.
44 degrees in Boston. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Made in Cookware. Made in Cookware is crafted by chefs for use in restaurants and home kitchens around the world. Their cookware can be found at madeincookware.com. This is NPR.
He is Jim Braude. I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are live at the Boston Public Library where Jim is. I'm on Zoom. But we're both streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Tomorrow we're going to be joined by Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley. She'll zoom into the show and we'll be back at the Boston Public Library on Friday. No tickets or RSVP required. Hello again, Jim.
By the way, while you were out sick, we did start requiring tickets and RSVP. I meant to tell you, and I forgot. Everybody here was kind enough. Everybody have a ticket? Okay. Can you hold it up for Marjorie? Thank you very much. Joining us now at the BPL desk, Juliette Kayyem. Juliette is a former Assistant Secretary for Homeland Security under Barack Obama, faculty chair of the Homeland Security Program at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government, also CNN's senior national security analyst. This is endless. And as of this week, she's the host of a new YouTube channel. It's called The Crisis Code. Here's how she introduces herself on YouTube.
I am generally involved when bad things happen.
Exactly. Okay, generally involved crisis consultant. Juliette, congratulations.
Hello.
It's great to see you.
Thank you all.
The Crisis Code it's called.
Oh, yeah, subscribe, please.
Congratulations.
I'm figuring it out. Well, I figure, I can riff a little bit and help people through these, the pace the rage.
Exactly.
Well, let's hear a little bit more from your introduction of the Crisis Code.
You guys are awesome.
Let's play a little bit more of that clip.
I am generally involved when bad things happen. I decided to start this channel because I wanted to share my expertise and help viewers find that space between tuning out and freaking out. And from time to time, I want to bring you inside this world and this profession I'm a part of, whether it's helping to manage the security at major sporting events or being CNN's senior national security advisor, or my frequent visits to the dog park where I am hounded, no pun intended, by other dog owners about the headlines.
So there obviously wasn't enough time to mention your appearances on Boston Public Radio.
Sorry.
Was that it?
I'm sorry. Next time I got to keep, I'm learning. I got to attach everything. But the dog park.
Okay.
You know
My
that dog
daughter
park.
occasionally encounters you with her dog.
Is,
That's right.
That
so,
is.
So what are you? Expand a little bit. What's the deal here?
I would think basically I'm very lucky with you all and CNN and the NewsHour and the Atlantic. I mean, I'm lucky to have these platforms formally, but I also there's a lot of times when people ask me things or I'm interested in saying something and I don't really have my own. I'm often in responsive mode. And so ever since Trump was elected, the emails and the quotes and the everything have just increased. And I thought, well, I should just own something. So we'll see. I'm playing around with it. Subscribe.
The Crisis Code
the
is
Crisis
what it's called.
Code with Juliette Kayyem. And I mean, some of it will just be, I'll do clips from here as Marjorie is at home, which might not be the best clip for today. But you look great.
Thank you.
But
Fixing
also talk
hair,
about my
it's a little
Atlantic
messy.
pieces. I have another piece coming out this week, I think, or it's coming out, I don't know what day, on disaster management, the issues that we're facing around immigration and climate and cyber and all that stuff. And it's going to be never ending. And so in my usual way of trying to find that lane between tuning out and freaking out, at least publicly, people say, say, how do you do it? I was like, well, you haven't seen me at home. Every once in a while, I do lose it. Well, I'll start to add content to this channel. So I'm excited.
Can we talk I'm sorry,
yeah,
Marty,
talk about something that I think is a crisis anyway. RFK Kennedy Jr. has been testifying this morning on Congress, caught in a lot of contradictions about what he claimed he didn't say, and then he said it because they played the tapes and stuff. His daughter, his cousin, Caroline Kennedy, wrote this really devastating letter about him, calling him, talking about how he puts baby chicks and mice in a blender, but it makes sense because he keeps birds of prey, and because he himself is a predator, said he's cheated his way through his life, talked about how he is exploited assassination of his own father and her father. Just went on and on and on. It was really tough. Yeah. So I don't know. A lot of people...
I would like to be on that family text group. I won't contribute. I just want to see the Kennedy cousins. There's got to be a WhatsApp chat room. First of all, this is so. You both have known her and know her legacy. She's a private Kennedy. She does not expose the family publicly, and has lived her life that way. So this could not have been easy. But I think she sees it as a moral imperative about not about his positions, but about the kind of human being he is. I read that. I read it and I sent it to my brother and my sister, and I was like, I vow I'll never write a letter like this. I was like sweating reading it. I was so, but also you just sit there and you're like, where the heck do they find these people? Like there's a lot of conservative people who could run HHS, but this one is, I mean, I know where Trump finds him, but.
Well, Trump loves that a Kennedy kid is a sycophant.
And that's exactly, and a Kennedy who has been, white privileged his entire life simply because of his last name. If you looked at his history of abuse and whatever debauchery and everything, there's no way that he would get a cabinet position but for the Kennedy last name. So I was really glad that she did it. On the substantive side, he is going to have to explain himself. Was he just throwing out all this stuff about vaccines and hating vaccines simply to get attention, or does he actually believe it? These people, they get before the Senate. I'm looking because it's happening right now at CNN. They get before the Senate and they sort of, reassess the entire way that they think about things. Kennedy, we know, is against vaccinations. During COVID, he sought
he said
for the
explicitly
FDA.
Today, I am not, for whatever it's worth.
I know, but I mean, what does it take during COVID? I mean, literally 1 million Americans have died, and he, as an individual, seeks a stay or whatever the legal standing was against the FDA's approval of the COVID vaccine. Who does that?
After it had already saved, according to experts, 140,000 lives.
At that
I want to play some sound we've been pulling throughout this hearing where he is in a position, as Juliette said, where he's got to change a position. He's being attacked by public health advocates for this insane, dangerous, deadly advice around vaccines, and he's being attacked by people like Mike Pence because he says he's pro-choice. Well, he had a dance again today. Senator Bennett, yet again, from Colorado, asked him a question about abortion. You'll hear what his answer is, and then come back to me. I'm going to play something for you. Here's Bennett, then RFK Jr.
Did you say on a podcast, and I quote, "I wouldn't leave abortion, to the states. My belief is we should leave it to the woman. We shouldn't have the government involved, even if it's full term." Did you say that, Mr. Kennedy?
Senator, I believe that every abortion is a tragedy.
Did you say it, Mr. Kennedy? This matters because unlike other jobs we're confirming around this place, this is a job where it is life and death.
Okay, so it's a tragedy because it's got to be a tragedy or worse if you want to work for Donald Trump. Well, unfortunately, he may have forgotten that he was on the Sage Steele show, a former ESPN host, just last year. Here's Steele, then RFK. Here it is.
So in other words, keeping it as is with Roe versus Wade having been overturned and leaving it up to the states to determine if and when a woman can have an abortion?
No, I wouldn't leave it to the states.
You wouldn't, right?
No, I would.
You would say completely, it's up to the woman.
My belief is we should leave it to the woman. We shouldn't have government involved.
Even if it's full term.
even if it's full term.
Now, obviously, you can't say even if it's full term and be confirmed in a MAGA cabinet. So his position is it's a tragedy.
Every single time.
The real tragedy is will 53 or 51 Republicans ignore all the evidence that this is the worst choice for this kind of position and have the courage, at least a couple of them, to stand up to Donald Trump. We shall see. Can we talk about somebody else, which is right up your alley?
What?
Potential director of national intelligence, who is a big fan of Putin, covered up for Assad and his murderous reign over his Syrian people. That obviously is another former Democrat. Well, he's still a Democrat, I think. He didn't run as a Democrat for president in the end. Tulsi Gabbard. What's going on with that?
Well, she is in trouble, but no one should listen. After saying listen to me, no one should listen to me because I thought Hegseth wasn't going to get through. And and there are moments, on my pace the range thing. What are things that put me over the top? For a variety of reasons, Hegseth was the one that put me over the top about just like the gall of that guy to think that he can run the Pentagon, and yet he goes forward, and the first thing he does is he denies a security detail for the former Joint Chiefs of Staff who sort of protected American democracy when
General Milley
when Trump wanted to deploy the troops.
Right.
Look, if you're a Democrat who pretends to be a Republican, you're in greater trouble than if you're a Republican who's just obnoxious. And that's what's happening, I think, both with Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard, because they're clearly not going to get the Democrats, and Republicans are skeptical of them for a variety of reasons. I think she is in trouble. She's anything anyone wants her to be. I mean, she's so ambitious. I met her years ago when she was a new congresswoman. She was fun and hip and like the future of the Democratic Party. She was great. And then she, I believe, felt that she had peaked within the party or didn't want to pay her dues, so was going to be anything to anyone, and now is just a dupe of anyone who's either paying for her trips or whatever they want to say. And I think there's a sense amongst the Republicans that is true of her. You also have more serious Republicans in the intelligence space, not all of them. I'm surprised that, as I said, I was surprised that the military wing of the Republican Party didn't push back against the Secretary of Defense, but I think she's going to have some issues. For one, she can't explain basic things in her bio, including what she's never explained who paid for that Syria trip. I think Assad did. I mean, I'm just speculating here, but I think Assad paid for her to come and then to do his bidding. And I think that is hard to defend. Lots of things.
Milley, the former chief of staff, as you mentioned, is going to be investigated now by Congress. Yeah. He was pardoned. So he can't be criminally.
For everyone who complained about for every Democrat who complained about Biden's pardons, anticipatory pardons, and said, "Oh, why is he doing this? And this is an abuse of the pardon power." Biden knew exactly what Trump was going to do. And I don't know why Democrats play this whataboutism and criticize Biden about it. I mean, I'm very supportive of those pardons because it wasn't like Trump was hiding it. Trump literally said, I'm going to pardon all the J6ers. I'm going to go after my political enemies. I don't know how this plays in the Pentagon. I've talked to a couple Pentagon reporters since the news last night because I was sort of curious, like, this guy is a scumbag and maybe pieces of the Pentagon like him, but he's going after women and LGBTQ and now Milley and is so unqualified. Like, I don't even need to pretend like he's qualified. I mean, it's just a statement of fact. And look, he's going to have challenges within the Pentagon, and there's a lot of people online or doing commentary who sort of wonder how long he'll last. I mean, there will be a pushback. Milley was, maybe the women in combat aren't that, supportive, and maybe the LGBTQ community are not that supportive, but, Milley was loved. Yeah. And you don't take away a star from a retired general unless he's guilty of insurrection, of which he clearly is not. But this is part of the rewriting.
On one thing quickly that you said, I am among those who did not like the pardons by Joe Biden, but I want to qualify that. I am not one who equated what Donald Trump did with people who tried to kill police officers and the pardoning of Milley and Fauci and his family members. I don't think Biden should have done it, but I don't think in its worst moment it rose to the atrocity
of the January 6th.
What Donald Trump did.
Which is polling poorly. I mean, I know people are like looking for, that's polling poorly. I mean, if you look at, it's every day there's 20 headlines. I actually, if people want to know how are people pacing the rage, I actually don't put my phone by my bed anymore because I just found like I was scrolling at night.
Jeff Bezos and you.
Yeah, is that what he did?
He did in the morning. But let me tell you something. While polling,
he probably has someone who wakes him up though. I have to keep it close by because I don't
Sanchez.
have a. Yeah, exactly.
I wrote well, there's nothing wrong with that. There was a poll this morning that said the American people fairly overwhelmingly against the proposed end of birthright citizenship, fairly heavily against Trump on the DEI extermination, against Trump on his embrace of fossil fuels and against climate change. However, in that same poll, they support what he's doing, at least as they understand it, on deportations. You wrote a piece.
And shrinking the federal government.
And shrinking the federal government.
Because they have no idea what they get from the federal government, which is our fault, I should say.
I agree with you. I think that, as we learn the lessons, like government's meaning in people's lives is a story that needs to be told. Trump is helping people tell that story because when you cut off all the funding, as he did in his OMB directive, people are going to be impacted almost immediately.
Okay, can I say something before we get? I want you to talk about what you wrote in the Atlantic. Before you do, about this is real. I'm glad we brought this up by chance. We don't know what government does. I met Marjorie when she wrote a vicious column about me in 1990 when I was trying to write the largest single percentage budget cut on the ballot in U.S. history. It was question 3. And part of that campaign was I wasn't doing media then at all. I mean, it was interviewed, but I wasn't doing what I do. Went out on the street and interviewed people around Boston and Cambridge and whatever. What do you get from your state government? And almost everybody said to me, nothing.
Yeah.
I don't get anything. How about so-and-so? Nothing. So with the third and last guy who was in the thing, I showed him a video that I had done the day before where a fire truck is whizzing by that location. There's a street light on. A little kid is getting on a school bus. And then I said, after this guy watched the video, how about these things? And he was fairly embarrassed. But the average person
doesn't know.
Because people in the media and politicians never sell the good that government does. All we do is talk about the stuff that government does that we don't like.
Right, and just explaining it. I'm a big, I've been in government, 3 different stints. It's very important to people who leave government to try to explain what it does. Agree. The Biden administration, people are coming out, however they're going to do it. They, this idea that, that people need to understand very specifically what it means when, say, the OMB directive came down. So here's like a specific thing that I, because I
with know the freeze these people and spending.
With the freeze and spending, which is that meant that funds, at least as interpreted, and now court has put it on pause. That meant, as interpreted, that funds that have been obligated to your police department, right, from the Department of Justice, that the police department was anticipating that had been approved would not be released. So they may have planned on hiring 4 new people or starting a program on fire safety or whatever it is, and those funds could not be released. Now we don't know what's open and what's closed. It's going to be settled in court. But that, making it that specific, it's like, oh, my police department, or maybe you don't like the police department, my fire department, my school was going to hire special ed teachers.
Your mother's in a nursing home and mass health money is on hold.
Yeah.
We're going to talk, by the way, Shirley Leung is going to talk about a great piece in the Globe that discusses the specific impact on services in Massachusetts. That's important. But can we get back to your piece on the whole deportation, migration issue? What'd you write?
So of the series of things that are going on the immigration front, which we're going to talk about, the mass deportations, the interior enforcement, the bravado and performative nature of allowing Dr. Phil to videotape a Chicago raid, and then this new Secretary of Homeland Security, Secretary Noem, looking like she's like going to Fallujah in 2003, going into a New York place and getting some guy who's like he was like at some like restaurant or something. It's just insane. So there's a performative nature of it. The numbers, though, as we know from the first week, have not changed. Basically, I just wanted to table set what's going on. President Trump had a problem when he became president, which was the border was relatively quiet. The changes that the Biden administration had made took way too long. Many of us were critical of them. Had quieted the biggest challenge at the border, which had been asylum. That was through everyone was showing up anywhere at the border, being given an appointment for asylum, and then put into the country. They made that a more formal process, and I should say a stricter process. For the first time in U.S. history, you had to have an appointment for an asylum claim, and you had to present yourself at what's called, at a port of entry. You couldn't just show up anywhere on the border and claim asylum. It would be denied. That limited the number of asylum seekers, and then that also contributing with help from South America. That's why we don't want to go to war with Colombia with an O, or Panama or anywhere else. Those countries were helping as well. Meant that Biden's final numbers in the last weeks, hard to imagine given the politics and that reporters weren't drilling down on representations made by Trump. Biden's final numbers in his final months were lower than Trump's final numbers. Remember, Trump had COVID to help him with those numbers. Lots of people weren't moving around. CBP app was one of the first moves that the Trump administration made. They ended it because it was too orderly. And so now they just have a free-for-all at the border again. Why would they want to do that? As Homan said on Meet the Press or this morning, on Sunday, well, everyone now can just show up to a port of entry. That's exactly what the CBP One app did. They want disorder. Remember that. They want disorder. They want the pictures. They want the crying immigrants. They want the people not knowing what they have. They want the school because they want disorder because the disorder justifies the performative nature of their mass deportations.
Well, and they also want to make the case that we're only deporting violent criminals. They deported 200 people to Colombia, and according to the Washington Post, those 200 violent criminals, 2 were pregnant women, more than 20 were kids, and according to the Colombian foreign minister, none. Were criminals.
So they hide behind criminal. Biden was in the violent criminal camp. So criminal could also be that you sought to regularize your status and were denied, which for whatever reason. So that could include a DUI 20 years ago, and you've subsequently gotten married and had kids, and those kids are U.S. citizens. They are defining criminal not as violent criminal, which has been the tradition. That they won the election, they can do that, but they better own up to the consequences. The thing is like it's the most weak when you show them what they're doing, they then lie because they don't want to admit that's what they're doing. That is what they're doing. And the Colombia thing is a perfect example where Trump can create a crisis where there is none. Biden was deporting Colombians back on non-military planes, claim victory, and the victory is the status quo. The victory is the status quo. And reporters were reporting this as if he was really tough. Honestly, people, we're back to the status quo. The only change is we've pissed off Colombia. That's now turning to China because every Latin American and South American country is looking at what happened and saying, I got to diversify.
Well, there's one other difference.
I got to diversify.
Trump brilliantly knows how to exploit the media, and Democrats, including Joe Biden, have no clue how to use the media. Congratulations on the crisis code. We'll be checking it out. Juliette Kayyem, thank you so much.
Juliette.
Bye. See you later.
Juliette Kayyem is former Assistant Secretary for Homeland Security under President Barack Obama, the faculty chair of the Homeland Security Program at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government, and also CNN's senior national security analyst, and as of this week, host of The Crisis Code on YouTube. You can get it at youtube.com @The Crisis Code. Thank you very much. Up next. Oh, do you want to say something about fish, Jim, before we move on here?
Oh, I forgot to do that. I'll do that at the end of Shirley's segment. Thank you very much.
Up next, Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Leung is going to talk to us about Mayor Wu. Will she or won't she testify before Congress on Boston's immigration rules? You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Christy Dashiell is nominated for her first Grammy Award for a jazz album that shows off her vocal range and emotional depth.
The human themes of love, loss, grief, joy, friendship, all of us can relate to that, black, white, brown, whatever.
I'm Elsa Chang. More on her new album, Journey in Black, on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Wondering where.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you
and the American Association for the Advancement of Science. Attendees of this year's annual meeting can connect with leaders of STEM, February 13th through 15th at Heinz Convention Center. Registration at AAAS.org/meetings. And Comcast Business, committed to providing connectivity for your business with network and cybersecurity solutions. Comcast Business, powering possibilities. Restrictions apply. To learn more, you can call or visit comcastbusiness.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Marjorie Egan is at home, zooming in, recovering from norovirus. She's doing quite well, she says, and we're thrilled she's here. I'm Jim Browdy at the library. We're both streaming youtube.com/GBH News. Before I introduce the next guest, I do want to do what yesterday, Roger Berkowitz, formerly Legal Seafood, now of Rogers Fish Co., was with us, and Andrea and I became so obsessed with the double clam chowder that that's all we talked about in terms of his new online company. And I want to have to say, as a customer, just to be fair, everything from Atlantic salmon topped with artichokes and spinach, lobster clam bake in your house, lump crab cakes. I mean, every seafood thing you can possibly imagine. He didn't ask for this, by the way. I'm doing. My apologies to Roger, because it's not that while the clam chowder is insane, that is far from the only thing they're doing there. Having said that, we're now joined at the library desk by Shirley Leung, business columnist for the Boston Globe, a host of the Say More podcast, and sometimes fill-in host on BPR, like on Monday, when she said the following promise.
I vow to you that I'm going to...
Prior to Wednesday?
Before Wednesday, I'm next on the show. I'm going to clean out my junk.
Is that like a lunar? That's like a Lunar New Year thing, right?
Yes, right. To declutter.
Yeah,
yes.
declutter. Yeah.
Declutter. Yeah, it is Lunar New Year. So happy New Year, Shirley. Good to see you.
Happy New Year.
Okay.
My New Year's off to a bad start.
What happened?
The junk drawer is still full of junk.
What happened to your commitment? I heard I just played it on the air for Monday.
I know. I'm going to have to do it this weekend.
Oh, sure you are.
Another year of bad luck, right? Because I have I have a drawer full of junk. So.
Shirley, it's hard. It spent me over Christmas vacation. I think it took me 2 hours to clean out one drawer, deciding what to throw out, what to keep.
I like Jim's advice.
What was it?
That you have to take the whole drawer and dump it all out.
Upside down.
Yeah,
right.
I like that. So
when you have your whole dining room table covered, like you said, you have to turn the dining room table upside down and go from there. You know, you this morning, you bought me a beef curry.
Curry beef bao from Great Taste Bakery.
Bao, sort of like a cake, a dumpling kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is how you spent your morning on the first day of the Lunar New Year. Explain to people some of the stuff that's going on around town.
So Lunar New Year, Chinese celebrated, Koreans, a lot of different Asian cultures celebrate. It is the biggest, new holiday of the year. It's like, it's basically Christmas and New Year's all rolled into one. In China, people take 2 weeks off. You have all these traditions like cleaning your house before the New Year. Or not. You have sweet treats that I brought more sweet treats. I brought you something Monday, Jim.
Yes, you did.
And
you brought Marjorie too. She didn't show up.
Oh, you know what happened? I ate Marjorie's treats. But I brought more. I heard you love peanuts. So this is really good.
Do.
These are
Jim's
like these
save
peanut
it for me.
Yeah, please save it for her, okay? You guys have a whole bag.
That'll happen.
And they only sell these during New Year's. But yeah, they have the Dragon Dance in Chinatown and Quincy. A lot of your local towns you should check often have Lunar New Year celebrations. I know there's one in Milton now, and so it's just it's a great time to get family together. Though I did goof again. I thought the big New Year's dinner, the meal. Yeah. I thought it was New Year's Day, but it's actually New Year's Eve. I'm a really bad Chinese mom. And so, but we're going to have dumplings tonight, or we're going to have noodles.
Sure,
and every dish has a
Marjorie's
symbol.
Candy you can have.
Exactly.
Can I make a suggestion too? Yes. In addition, most newspapers like the Globe have a lot of great Lunar New Year events. But in addition to that, the owner of Pagu and Mei Dumpling was here the other day, Irene Lee and Tracy Chang. Check out your favorite Asian restaurant. Most of them are doing a special meal, a dumpling, all-you-can-eat thing, whatever. Check them out.
So I want to share one Chinese New Year story.
Please.
Or I guess it's related, because what happens is that a lot of times you get red envelopes. You know, I actually gave Jamie's son a red envelope. You give them to children. It's a red envelope, and I filled it with a $2 bill, which is, you know, it's supposed to bring you extra good luck. Yeah. And I remember, I don't know how this came about, but I remember doing a story. I think it was actually, might have been Time to, was it Time to, it might have been Time to Lunar New Year, about Charlie Baker. And he carried a red envelope like the one I gave you, Jamie, in his wallet with a $2 bill in it. And the story goes, I actually forgot this, had to reread the story. He was campaigning the first time, running for, or whatever, maybe the second time. He was running for governor, maybe 2014 or so, or maybe it was the second time. Anyways, he's running for governor. And, well, because he ran twice.
He lost to Deval Patrick, and then he won, yes.
And so he's running, and he's on the campaign trail, and an Asian guy comes up to him and gives him a red envelope. And he has no idea what's going on. He thought the guy wanted a donation from Charlie Baker. So he takes money out of his pocket. Charlie puts money in the red envelope, returns it to the guy. And the guy looks at him like, what are you doing? Why are you giving this red envelope back to me? I'm giving you this red envelope for good luck on the campaign trail. And so Charlie Baker kept that red envelope in his, for years, kept it in his wallet for good luck.
Well, he got good luck. Got a $4 million a year job at the NCAA.
Exactly. He won 2 terms as governor.
Can we post this photograph, or we can't, of Baker holding the little red thing?
A red envelope. Yeah,
we'll do that in
they call it home ball. And so, okay, one more home ball story.
Sure.
So my kids, you know, my kids. So you also get home ball or red envelope during Christmas, right? So we were in LA for the holidays, and so every relative they see, they haven't seen them in months, they give them red envelope. So now the 12-year-old, you know, when we get ready to board the plane, he's like, oh, I can't wait to see my relatives. I can't wait to get the red envelopes from them. I'm like, are you serious? It's like you're supposed to be happy seeing, you know, your family, not about the red envelopes. And so then when I see my brother, you know, his uncle, my mom, in like August, non-holiday time, he's like, oh, I can't wait to get red envelopes from them. It's like, you don't get them all year round. You only get them during Christmas.
I love this kid, actually.
You know, anyways, so I'm done. I'm done.
Happy New Year.
Thank you. Year of the Snake. Oh, one more thing. Year of the Snake. Do you know who are the famous Year of the Snake?
John F. Kennedy.
John F. Kennedy, Tom Brady, Taylor Swift.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Lots of famous Year of the Snake.
Look at Marjorie.
Year of the
Wait
Snake.
a minute. So how do they qualify as Year of the Snake?
Well, it's the year they're born. You know, it's like a 12-year cycle, and so and I just discovered these lists, famous people born in Year of the Snake. Let's see, Audrey Hepburn, Chubby Checker, you know, Indira Gandhi. Lots of people.
Didn't you interview Audrey Hepburn for an hour on NECN?
I did.
Oh,
it was one of my. Yeah, it was so neat. I wasn't very good then, but I did try to do it.
Did you ask her about being the Year of the Snake, or you?
I did not ask her about being the Year of the Snake, but it was a big thrill to interview her. So Shirley, tell us about this pause that President Trump wants to do about federal grants, federal funding. What does it mean in Massachusetts?
Well, it was total chaos yesterday. I mean, a lot of nonprofits, a lot of community health care centers. I mean, they were getting notes that there was no money, and you know, you think about school lunches, right? In Massachusetts, that's federal money flowing to school lunches, and so universities were up in arms. And apparently it doesn't affect Pell Grants, but it does affect work-study programs. So there is a lot of federal money flowing through the state of Massachusetts. Also, private companies. I mean, going after federal contracts. They have no idea of what's going on. So there's so much uncertainty. I don't know, and even it seems like the federal government, the administration didn't even know what was going on.
Well, a lot of elected officials, too, are on the right side of this. They actually believe in the important things that government does, haven't been able to answer constituents as to what's going on. Let me just give you one example in this piece by one of your colleagues, Danny McDonald in the Globe. Michael Curry is a regular guest on the show and runs the League of Community Health Centers. Let me read from the Globe story. Some clinics, there are 50 of them, I think, roughly. Some clinics get as much as 40% of their budgets from the federal government. It's roughly $130 million. Mike Curry said health centers were not able to access federal funds Tuesday. Medicaid, same thing. As we discussed with John Gruber a few days ago, Medicaid is not just for low-income people's health care. It's primarily for your grandmother to be able to afford, in quotes, to be in a nursing home. Those payments were stopped yesterday, which causes real dislocation and, in my opinion, much more importantly, fear in the people who are the beneficiaries of these programs, you know?
I mean, I'm not sure if it happened here, but I know in other parts of the country, I mean, daycares actually closed for the day. You know, because they were like, we couldn't access funds. I mean, I was hoping it would be one of these Trump stories where they said, you know, there's a pause on federal money and grants, and actually, you know, you could still access the funds. You could just ignore that message. But no, organizations actually could not get money.
Maddie, our colleague, has the picture of Governor Baker looking much younger, I should say, holding up his little red envelope there.
Oh, he does look much younger.
With a gubernatorial smile, I should say. So there he is with the red envelope. Shirley, when you were sitting in for Marjorie on Monday, Mayor Wu was kind enough to join us for a half hour. We asked her about her position on federal immigration authorities, and here's just a little piece of what Mayor Wu had to say.
We will continue to do what we do on the city side, which is keeping everyone safe here, and we don't have the authority to, let's say, stop or overrule what they're doing in their domain, but neither do they in our domain either. And so we are going to continue to follow all the laws. We've issued guidance to school leaders and to our school communities that make it very clear there are no unauthorized adults that are allowed in school buildings, period.
Well, the stakes have been raised since we spent time with the mayor.
Right.
Federal authorities in Congress have invited 4 mayors who run, even if they're not technically that, de facto sanctuary cities. Mayor Wu acknowledged the invitation. It's not a subpoena yet, but hasn't made up her mind. What's your take on this?
I don't think she should go.
Why is that?
It's a trap. It's a setup. It's just like the university presidents. When Claudine Gay, then president of Harvard, she was, hauled in front of Congress along with the UPenn president and the MIT president.
Yeah. Only one survived.
Only one survived.
MIT.
Grilled over campus anti-Semitism. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen. I hope she doesn't go.
Well, I have to say, I hope with equal fervor that she does go.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, with all due respect to Claudine Gay, who I've never met, I think she was ill-prepared, which is a function of her, in my opinion, lack of preparation. The lawyers they hired, I think, was written about in the Globe, did a horrible job of preparing. I think Wu, I don't know these other mayors. I think it's Chicago, New York. Is it Denver, I think, is the fourth one? I'm not sure.
I mean, Wu will definitely be better prepared because she's a seasoned
let them
politician.
stand up to these know-nothing people. This guy, Tom Homan, who is, of all the crass people in the Trump administration, Stephen Miller wins number 1. There's no question about it. A close number 2 is the border czar, who felt it necessary after Mayor Wu stated what the law was on our show and some television show, 3 months ago, under the Trust Act. This is the law in Boston. She was stating the law. He felt it necessary to say she could, quote, get the hell out of the way. And a little bit later, when he's at Harvard, in true Trumpian fashion, he says something like, well, she's not that smart anyway. I mean, degrading, low-rent, sick crap.
But don't you think it's a trap, though? You don't think it's a trap?
They want it to be a trap.
I don't trust them.
Here's what I think would be great. They wanted her to come in February, right? She's given birth about weeks ago. She's a nursing mother. I think she should bring, she's got to be there for several hours down in Congress, bring her little baby down, nurse the baby right there on the congressional floor, and they can all see how the visuals of that, them dumping all over a nursing mother, who, by the way, we've had her on many, many times. Michelle Wu is very good at answering questions.
She is.
Tough questions.
She's very good.
And I think I give her more. I think she might be able to do better than other people who were lawyered to the max, right?
Over-lawyered.
Claudine Gay was over-lawyered.
Right. Claudine Gay is a really smart person. I've read a lot about it. And clearly, had she gone in and I think answered the questions as she would have answered the questions were it not for the legal coaching, my assumption is we wouldn't be and she wouldn't be where she is. But I think, the danger is, I agree with Marjorie, not only do I think she can totally handle it, and I hope the other mayors can too, but if they don't go, it gets worse because then the story is totally controlled by the mob in Congress who don't give a damn about fellow human beings if they don't look exactly like them. So she hasn't said yet what she's going to do. Both she and Governor Healy said obviously it's a political thing, which it clearly is. But I hope she goes. And I think it's February 11th. Is that the 10th? I think the date?
Sometime in
It's
February.
soon. It's a couple of weeks from now. We're talking to Shirley Leung from the Boston Globe.
So tell us about DEI stuff, too, that's going on in a lot of these companies and in the government.
Right. So I think day one and day two, President Trump signed executive orders to disband DEI offices within the federal government, dismantle programs. Also, there was another executive order where he basically rescinded a 1965 executive order from President Johnson that required, that federal contracts go through, adopt some affirmative action and equal opportunity policies. I think he's since dismissed, the commissioners of the Equal Opportunity Commission as well. But anyways, I wrote a column about...
Read the lead.
Memo to...
Do you remember the lead?
Yes, I think it's Memo to President Trump. Women and people of color are not taking over America. I mean, to me,
That's right.
doing what he did was driven by fear. The fear that that there are too many women-owned businesses or too many women entrepreneurs, too many people of color running businesses. They're getting too many federal contracts. And I was showing that, listen, it's a very modest number of contracts go to women and people of color. I think women, it's about 5%. I think black-owned businesses, about 1.5%. So these are, if anything, the affirmative action programs did not go far enough to really advance, or create a more equitable system.
Can we stay on this for a second? One of the heartening things, I mentioned this poll before about migrants, about deportations, that were a majority of people, I think a plurality, support what Donald Trump is doing. This is the University of Virginia poll. I was shocked by this. 59% of the people who responded to the poll oppose Trump's moves to end federal efforts to promote the hiring of women and members of racial minority groups, which again is one poll, but that's interesting. But here's my concern, which no one has addressed, or maybe they have and I missed it. We've talked ad nauseum, thanks to some great reporting in the Globe and some fabulous reporting by our colleagues at GBH, about the contracting, the pathetic level of contracting that goes to women and people of color in three places: the state, the city of Boston, and the worst numbers, I'm embarrassed to say, my hometown of Cambridge, Massachusetts, a couple of years ago, something like 1% or some pathetic number. I don't know what Cambridge is doing. I'm sure they're attempting to get them better. I know Boston under Wu
have really improved the numbers.
And the state under Baker and now under Healy are working to improve the numbers. But what happened? I mean, that clearly is in the minds of Donald Trump favoring people of color and women. Both the state and the city obviously get federal money. Isn't there going to come a point where they're going to say to Wu and Healy, you stop those programs to increase minority contracting, or we're going to take away your federal funds?
That's the concern, not only, I think, among city and the state, but also among private companies, too.
But they're not, I saw your piece, you co-wrote that piece.
Yes.
But they're not getting federal money, are they? So what are they worried about?
No, a lot of companies.
Federal contracts?
Right, federal contracts, right. Okay. I mean, think about the Raytheons or...
that's a good point.
Right. There's a lot of... I mean, we quote Jim Rooney from the Chamber saying that when you put a pause on federal money, a lot of that money is spent through private companies. So it does affect... And so what's... I mean, I like to say, who's getting the most out of this? The most out of this is the lawyers. There's so many lawyers out there trying to look at, like, well, how do can we spend this money? Are we vulnerable? If DEI, if we have a DEI policy at our private company, does that mean we will be ineligible for federal money?
Can I quote Marjorie Egan here, if I may?
Oh, my goodness.
Well, the first half is mine, but the second half, which is the more important part, is yours. The first half is, rather than these cowards backing off from commitments they made to diversity, equity, inclusion, because hopefully some of them believe they were actually good for society and the bottom line, as you argue all the time, including your piece. This is the Marjorie part. why don't the 10 biggest CEOs in Boston get together and do a press conference together and say, we represent $8 trillion of revenue that we're all in the Fortune 500. We are not going to back down because we believe that this is important for our mission, for our bottom line, for everything we believe in, not to mention the fact that a huge percentage of our employees are people of color, low-income people who are dependent upon our commitment to this. Why don't they stand up and show a little courage?
They're scared. They're really scared. And no, I do have to say some companies, maybe not 10 gathering, but they are
Costco. Who besides Costco?
Jamie Dimon.
JP Morgan?
Yeah, has come out and said we're not
that.
backing down. So no, there are companies not backing down, which is great. But they might not make that big of a deal of it.
Maybe they can get Mark Zuckerberg. Did you hear what they called Mark Zuckerberg with his new curly hair and his gold chain on Saturday Night Live?
No.
They called him a Puerto Rican gigolo. That's what they called him. Maybe he can, use, because he's big on everybody being macho now. Maybe he can stand up a little bit, with his
he's not. He just rolled back. He rolled back DEI. He rolled back moderating, fact checking.
Exactly.
He's the worst.
Shirley, we only have a minute and a half for this, but you wrote what I thought was a really compelling piece a few months ago about, hey, new women's professional soccer team, rather than this white stadium thing that's causing such controversy, huge expenditure for you and the city, why don't you call the Crafts and ask if you could be part of their men's soccer stadium in Everett? But then you met with one of the major investors.
Yeah, Jennifer Epstein.
Who was in our studio with her colleagues when the team was formed. And it appears she convinced you maybe you weren't right. Is that correct?
Well,
you have a minute.
Well, she was saying, listen, we want to be in our own stadium. We think it's important. I think the quote she said is, we don't want to be a baby sister.
Exactly.
We want our own venue. We want to control. Actually, the most convincing thing is we want to have priority scheduling on the days that we're in the stadium. Because if we play with the men, then we're fighting for weekend game slots. We're fighting for primetime slots. And those broadcast slots are important because then money is tied to that, and advertising and media dollars are tied to that. So I get that, and so, they want to.
So did you flip?
Well, I mean,
that's okay.
It's okay. Well,
yeah.
I mean,
I flipped, by the way.
Yeah,
I was with you.
I get it. I mean, it still doesn't mean, fast track. I feel like they still have to deal with the neighborhood and the neighbors who are the opponents of white stadiums.
Well, so does Mayor Wu in an election year, yeah.
But anyways, yeah, I thought she made a convincing argument, that we, and also
it's Jennifer Epstein.
Also for the future of the growth of the women's professional soccer teams. I mean, not just for the Boston team, but for the whole league. Because I got a chance to speak with the league commissioner as well, and she said it's the difference between renting and owning your own home.
I totally get it.
You can build equity if you have priority scheduling and it feels like your stadium versus you're just, borrowing it from the men.
Fair enough. Shirley, it's great to see you. Thanks for all the Lunar New Year stuff.
Thank you for all the treats,
Make sure you share it with Marjorie. I'm gonna ask you next time, okay? If Jim shared the treats.
I think we know what the answer will be.
50-50.
Happy New Year. It's great to see you. Take care.
Have a great time tonight with the kids, with the dumplings and the noodles. It sounds like great fun. Shirley, thank you.
Thank you.
We've been speaking with Shirley Leung, business columnist for the Boston Globe and host of the great Say More podcast. Coming up after a quick break, 2 more things from Jim and me. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library. I'm on Zoom, but we're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Gambling is everywhere.
You write those numbers, there's a feeling. Ooh, good high.
Sports betting, casinos, prediction markets, and of course, the humble scratch ticket.
You said, it's not about the money, it's about the dreams.
I'm Ian Koss, here to tell you about Scratch and Win, a new podcast about the history of the most successful, innovative state lottery in America, Massachusetts. Find Scratch and Win wherever you listen.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And Central Square Theater, presenting Space, a new play about the Mercury 13 female pilots, their ancestors, and the national civil rights space race that has spanned our past century. Begins January 30th. CentralSquareTheater.org. And H&H, the Handel and Haydn Society. Love Gone Wrong never sounded so right, with 3 passionate works by Handel. February 7th and 9th at NEC's Jordan Hall. Tickets at handelandheiden.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Braude and Marjorie Egan. Marjorie is at home recovering from the norovirus. She's doing quite well, she says. She'll be back physically on Friday at the library. I am at the library. We're both streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. By the way, Congresswoman Presley will join us tomorrow at 11 o'clock. Time now for a still sort of newish Two More Things segment. That's where Marjorie and I bring you some items from our lives or the news that are sort of sticking with us, but we didn't have time to fit in the show. What are you talking about, Marjorie?
Well, I'm going to talk about Carolyn Leavitt, Trump's new press secretary.
Oh, good.
I guess I shouldn't have been surprised when she showed up at the podium yesterday wearing this huge cross
I knew you'd do this.
around her neck.
I knew
It's really the go-to fashion accessory for so many Fox or ex-Fox News or Trump-supporting women. Laura Ingraham, Jeanine Pirro, Kayleigh McEnany, Trump's past secretary. Remember Katie Britt, the Alabama senator who gave that kind of demonic response to Biden's State of the Union address in her kitchen. And now Leavitt, who curiously was not sporting a cross on any of the many, many pictures I scrolled through of her online yesterday. It just appeared yesterday. So you have to say, what is the message Leavitt is sending? She's from New Hampshire, by the way.
She ran for Congress from there.
Yep, with a cross. Was she saying that Donald Trump is doing God's work? Was she saying that she's holier than we are? You know, that she's a crusader for Jesus Christ, except the gospel is centered around forgiveness and not retribution, and the poor and the stranger, and mercy. Remember mercy? Bishop Buddy was talking about mercy in her much-quoted speech that really ticked off President Trump last week. Maybe Leavitt, who is Catholic, is trying to say that she's down with the Catholic Christian teaching, except she's got at least two big problems. Yesterday she called the Green New Deal a scam, even though the Pope wrote probably the best recognized document ever written about saving the planet. And she's apparently on board with Trump's plan to haul women and kids out of schools and hospitals, and yes, even Catholic churches, as part of mass deportation. And the Pope, as you know, has called mass deportation a disgrace. So she's a Catholic-educated graduate of St. Anselm's College because she knows all this too well. The whole thing kind of makes this very pious public display of the cross not just hypocritical, but as she herself might put it, Jim, a scam.
So before I move on to mine, I'm going to do an imitation. You tell me who it is. I see you. I hear you. I want you. Who was that? Katie Britt's response to the State of the Union. Thank you very much. Okay, for the second time in a week. Last week, I gave my whole 2 minutes to Reverend Buddy because she was spectacular standing across from the president at that service. Today, I'm doing the same thing to someone we've talked about a lot today, Caroline Kennedy. Her video letter to the U.S. Senate on the confirmation of her first cousin, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. We don't have time for all of it, but here are the key parts.
It's no surprise that he keeps birds of prey as pets, because Bobby himself is a predator. I watch his younger brothers and cousins follow him down the path of drug addiction. His basement, his garage, his dorm room were always the center of the action, where drugs were available, and he enjoyed showing off how he put baby chickens and mice in a blender to feed to his hawks.
Oh.
Bobby was able to pull himself out of illness and disease. I admire the discipline that took and the continuing commitment it requires. But siblings and cousins who Bobby encouraged down the path of substance abuse suffered addiction, illness, and death, while Bobby has gone on to misrepresent, lie, and cheat his way through life. Today, while he may encourage a younger generation to attend AA meetings, Bobby is addicted to attention and power. Bobby preys on the desperation of parents of sick children, vaccinating his own kids while building a following hypocritically discouraging other parents from vaccinating theirs. We are a close family, and none of that is easy to say. It also wasn't easy to remain silent last year when Bobby expropriated my father's image and distorted President Kennedy's legacy to advance his own failed presidential campaign, and then groveled to Donald Trump for a job.
There's more.
Each day, GBH brings you coverage on a wide range of information so you can stay informed and engaged in our local community. We depend on listener contributions to keep this quality reporting going. Support your listening by pitching in at gbhnews.org.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Celebrity Series of Boston, presenting Counterpoint, a collaboration between pianist Conrad Tao and tap dancer Caleb Teicher, live at Boston Arts Academy on February 7th and 8th. Tickets at celebrityseries.org. And Boston Medical Center, committed to delivering medical excellence that empowers all patients. Learn more about how BMC's team of experts is rewriting healthcare for cancer, sickle cell, and beyond at bmc.org.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH, HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News, what matters to you?
The way we start our morning is often a sign of the day to come. So what does it mean if you start your day like Jim, frantically texting Jamie all his anxieties at 5 a.m.? What is your secret to a healthy start to the day? Call or text on Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, streaming on youtube.com/GBH News.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is facing tough questions at his Senate confirmation hearing on his nomination for Health and Human Services Secretary and facing disruptions from protesters today. Democrats on the panel have had tense exchanges with Kennedy. They cite Kennedy's books and actions in accusing him of embracing harmful conspiracy theories. They're disputing his claim that he is not anti-vaccine and raise concerns that he will put politics and his support of President Donald Trump over the health and welfare of the U.S. public. Kennedy has received a warmer reception from Republicans on the panel. Finance Committee Chair McCreath of Idaho.
Mr. Kennedy, if confirmed, you will have the opportunity to chart a new and better course for the federal approach to tackling both the drivers and the consequences of our ailing healthcare system. Your commitment to combating chronic conditions that drive healthcare costs will be critical to our success.
Kennedy faces a second confirmation hearing before a separate committee tomorrow. The Trump administration is investigating former Joint Chiefs Chairman Mark Milley. NPR's Quill Lawrence reports the Pentagon has taken away Milley's security detail.
President Donald Trump railed against Milley on the campaign trail, even calling for the retired four-star general to be executed after Milley criticized Trump. Now Trump has pulled the security teams that were protecting Milley despite credible threats on his life from the government of Iran. A Pentagon statement accused Milley of undermining the chain of command. His security clearance was also stripped, and Milley may have his rank reduced in retirement pending an investigation by the Defense Department Inspector General. That Inspector General was replaced last week by the Trump administration in an apparent purge. Quill Lawrence, NPR News.
A meeting of Latin American and Caribbean countries scheduled to respond to President Trump's deportations has been canceled. NPR's Zeta Peralta reports the meeting was called after a diplomatic rift between Colombia and the U.S.
Over the weekend, Colombian President Gustavo Petro turned back American military planes carrying deported Colombian migrants. He said the migrants were being treated inhumanely. At the same time, the president of Honduras, Xiomara Castro, called an extraordinary session of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States. Castro is a leftist who has spoken out against the U.S. As Trump came to office, she threatened to close down a U.S. military base in Honduras if the U.S. mistreats migrants. But the U.S. said Petro capitulated, and then Castro canceled the meeting. In a statement, Castro said it was a shame that some member states put other interests above Latin American unity. Ada Peralta, NPR News, Tegucigalpa.
U.S. stocks are trading lower this hour. The Dow is down 161 points at 44,688. It's NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Shortly before a federal judge blocked President Donald Trump's plan to pause funding for federal grants and loans, Harvard President Alan Garber notified Harvard affiliates that some federally funded research initiatives at the university would have to shut down to comply with the order. And now that that order is on hold while the judge reviews it, a Harvard spokesperson did not immediately comment on whether the block will affect the status of those research initiatives that Garber was referring to. The Office of Management and Budget memo that calls for the freeze on federal funding and grants takes aim at diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, calling them a waste of taxpayer dollars. Many attorneys general say the order is likely to see a slew of legal action. And no sooner did the city of Cambridge unveil its plan to add separated bike lanes on a portion of Broadway yesterday, some residents were right there with a mountain of criticism. Most were concerned about the decrease in street parking. Others said Cambridge already has enough bike lanes. The bike lane project is a continuation of the city's cycling safety ordinance, which requires Cambridge to install 25 miles of separated bike lanes by November 1st, 2026. Now, city officials presented the proposal, which would eliminate 60% of the parking spaces between Portland Street and Columbia Street in Cambridge. Celtics host the Bulls at the Garden tonight. We're at 44 degrees in Boston right now. I'm Henry Santoro. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance. Progressive is looking for dedicated and forward-thinking individuals to join their growing team. More information, including application, at progressive.com/careers.
He is Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are live at the Boston Public Library. I'm actually on Zoom, but Jim is there. We'll both be back at the library on Friday. And Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley will join us tomorrow at 11. We are not at the library, but meanwhile, we're all streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Hello again, Jim.
Hey, Marjorie. I forgot when Shirley was here to mention her Say More podcast. This week's edition is hosted by the Globe's editorial page editor, Jim Dow. Jim interviews writer Jenny Boylan, who transitioned 25 years ago, talking about the culture change in the treatment of trans people. In her new book, Cleavage, Men, Women, and the Space Between Us. The episode drops tomorrow. This Sunday, it's the 67th Annual Grammy Awards, coinciding with the Chiefs-Eagles Super Bowl, if you're looking for an excuse not to support the NFL. 94 different categories, a lot of incredible music up for awards that you may have missed. And that's why we have our next 3 guests here to help us navigate the awards. And by the way, we are not going to talk about whether Beyonce is going to win her Album of the Year for the first time. You'll hear that plenty of places. We're joined for other discussion in person by Brian McCreath, Director of Production for GBH Music and host of CRB's Boston Symphony Orchestra broadcast. Good to see you, Brian.
Hey, good to be here, Jim.
James Bennett II, arts and culture reporter for GBH, also co-host of The Culture Show. How are you, James?
I'm awake.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. It's a step in the right direction, at least. And with us, joining over Zoom, I hope. Oh, there he is, actually.
He's here.
Because he's actually going to be at the Grammys tomorrow. Emmett Price III, Dean of Africana Studies at Berkeley, and the less, how should I put this, outspoken half of GBH's All Revved Up podcast with the great Reverend Irene Monroe. Gentlemen, it's great to see all 3 of you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us back.
So Emmett, just tell us, I know you're going to the Grammys, which is fantastic, but you've also got family out in L.A. How are they doing with the fires?
Yeah, thank you. We're grateful that it rained about 2 or 3 days ago for about 12 hours, and the rain was very helpful in containing a number of wildfires. And so I think they have it under control. My family's been fine. We're a little further south than the fire ranges, so thank you for your concern. It looks like a bomb went off in a number of neighborhoods, just to see it, and there's soot and ash everywhere, but things are coming back, and now it's the politics, right? Now it's the concerns about insurance and non-insurance and who gets assistance, who doesn't get assistance, and the timing. But there's a great spirit of hope and a great spirit of resilience in the county, Los Angeles County, and I'm hopeful that people will be okay.
So are we all. Now for the fun part. James, you are going to start. You are awake.
Yes, I'm awake.
You are awake. Fine. I just want to double check to make sure you still
it's
are.
Earlier, that's true.
James, well, it was 5 minutes since I asked him. James, you're going to start us off. What do you got?
Okay, so the first thing I want to cue up is the album Night Rain. That's by Arooj Aftab. She is a musician working in kind of like, this jazz world of her own. This is actually not her first ride at the Grammys. I think she's been nominated for something for the last 4 consecutive years. So
wow.
22, 23, 24, and now 25. Her album Night Rain is nominated for a Best Alternative Jazz Album, and one of her singles from that album, Ratki Rani, is nominated for Best Global Music Performance. And with this album, she said in a couple interviews that she kind of struggled with following up on her last effort, which was a huge success. I mean, she was nominated for Best New Artist off of the success of that album. She had this track on it that it was called Mohabbat. It made it to Barack Obama's, famed, personally curated summer playlist. And so with this album, Night Rain, she's trying to kind of move past the weight of the expectation of following such an impressive, what we would call a first act, but she's been making music for a long time. She moved here from Pakistan, first Pakistani woman to win a Grammy, studied at Berkeley in music production. So this is actually, I think, her third or fourth album. So she's been in the game for a minute, but her star has really blown up. But let's take a listen to this song off this album, Ratki Rani, nominated for Best Global Music Performance.
What a vibe.
Yeah, and the name for that, Ratki Rani, that is the Urdu for the plant Sestra nocturnum, the queen of the night, that perfumed flower, and it kind of syncs up with her thoughts on the song. She says that it's about a person whose allure, magnetism, and charisma floats through a beautiful evening garden party.
Oh, it's beautiful. This is, by the way, even one song in, this is why this is one of Marjorie's favorite segments we ever do. You hear such great music that you would never have heard otherwise.
Yeah. That is absolutely gorgeous.
It's so meditative.
It's haunting.
Yeah.
Is another word. It's beautiful. Emmett, you're out there in LA. What's your number one?
Well, I am paying attention to an artist who's been around just for a couple of years, but she's kind of brand new to the kind of international scope. Her name is Doechii, 26 years old, out of Tampa. And she's done a couple of things before, but her latest album has been taken by storm. She had a phenomenal presentation on Colbert Show in December. She released a couple of music videos a couple weeks ago, and she is up for 3 awards. She's up for Best Rap Album, Best Rap Performance, and Best New Artist. And let's take a listen to her song Nissan Altima.
We edited that tag. Just a tag.
Oh, yes, you did.
Just a little bit.
Wow.
I mean, but her flow is fantastic, her rhythmic approach to it. But she is just such a phenomenal, engaging artist, performance-wise. When you watch her, whether live or watch her, on television or watch her music videos, she just really captivates the energy. And she's really kind of like a Kendrick Lamar, kind of a very raw, but clever in the presentation of what she's saying, and she's real. And she is attracting a really large audience now, and it's growing, and it's awesome.
Where did you first catch her, Emmett?
I've been listening to her for a couple of years. During COVID, she was on YouTube, and then before that, she was on TikTok. But really, her blowout was the Colbert Show in December.
Got it.
I think more eyes saw her on that, and her presentation was amazing. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out.
There's this.
How old is she?
About 26.
Yeah, she's 26 years old. Boy, she's got a whole career in front of her.
Aiden also just texted us and said she's got a great Tiny Desk concert too, which is really terrific. Yeah.
Oh, cool. I'm gonna look that up.
Yeah.
It's an addictive rhythm, just addictive.
Yeah.
More
okay, Brian McCreath, you're next.
Okay, I'm going to first start by congratulating Jim, Marjorie, the entire BPR crew for being one of the very few, maybe the only mainstream media outlet that's going to pay attention or even acknowledge that there are classical music Grammys.
So many.
Well done.
You know why we do that? Because you told us we had to. That's why we do it, Brian.
Me? Why would I do such a thing?
Go ahead.
Okay, well, listen, there's a fantastic piece that an album that is nominated for actually 4 separate Grammys: Best Orchestral Performance, Best Contemporary Classical Composition, Best Classical Compendium, and Best Engineered Album Classical. And that is this album of music by Gabriela Ortiz. She's a Mexican composer, and the album is by the Los Angeles Philharmonic with Gustavo Dudamel. And the piece that I'm going to focus on here is the title piece, Revolución Diamantina, which is Spanish for the Glitter Revolution or Glitter March. And this is a piece that Ortiz was inspired to write by the 2019 feminist marches in Mexico City that followed a horrific thing, as these things do, right? When women took to the streets to protest the inaction following a brutal rape by police, actually, in Mexico City.
And now they have the first woman president of their country, I should say. Scheinbaum.
Right. So Revolución Diamantina is a 40-minute long piece, but I just want to focus just for a sense of the sound world that Gabriela Ortiz is coming from. This is a little bit of the first movement of this piece, Revolución Diamantina. There's a real roiling going on here because this part of the piece is all about the harassment and lack of security in public spaces that Gabriela Ortiz is expressing that women everywhere feel. But just on a musical basis, it also, as we're getting through this roiling part, she has an orchestrational voice, a sense of color within an orchestra that you'll hear as this develops. With a little hearkening back to her Mexican musical roots in terms of its rhythm. So it's just a really imaginative use of the regular instruments of the orchestra, plus an enormous percussion section. The Boston Symphony is actually going to play this piece at the end of February, beginning of March. So I already know that they're clearing out almost, a quarter of the stage just for the percussion section to be able to do this piece. But it's a really fabulous piece, an amazing album, and she is very much a composer of the moment. She had a huge residency at Carnegie Hall earlier this season.
Look at the smile on Marjorie's face, by the way.
Well,
she loves this.
I love it, but I also wanted to mention I had a chance to see the symphony last Saturday night, when they did the 8th and 9th.
Yeah, we were there broadcasting.
Old chestnut, you might say, Beethoven's 8th and 9th Symphony. But at the end of the 9th Symphony, the moment Andres Nelson's put down his baton, everybody in unison stood up in this huge standing ovation. It was just one of those things you'll always remember. It was great.
I remember it well. I mean, just a little tangent here about that series, Marjorie, that the sense of all these 9 symphonies being performed in just a 3-week series turned out to be just a revelation. We think we know these pieces. If you listen to classical music a lot, we know Beethoven's symphonies really well. But to hear them in this close proximity to each other was an incredible experience. And Chad Smith actually just told me the other day that there's a group, he said maybe 10-15% of the audience came to hear every one of the symphonies.
Wow.
And they kind of made this little name for themselves. They're calling themselves the Niners. And so you too can become a Niner when you visit our website, because you can listen to all those broadcasts on demand right now.
I would have done that. Marjorie got tickets. I couldn't get any. So in any case, doesn't bother me at all. So James,
that's why we're there for you, Jim.
We're back there for a round of wonderful points. Round 2, there, James Bennett.
Round 2, okay. So I know Emmett led with some Dochi, which is fantastic. And it turns out that I'm going to also kind of keep us in that hip-hop direction. So this is a song called 86 Centra from the album Why Lord? By No Worries, which is a collaboration. Anderson .Paak and Knowledge.
Silk Sonic guy with Bruno Mars, right?
One could call him the Silk Sonic guy.
Oh, you don't like me doing that?
Oh, I mean, you can. That's Bruno Mars.
The likes of you can, Jim.
Bruno Mars is having his own difficulties right now. We can talk about the quality of his recent music if we'd like.
Well, whoa. What happened to him?
You know, this he had that song. I think it was Glorilla, was it, or Sexy Red? I believe.
What happened with that?
It just was bad.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a problem. But go ahead, keep going.
But this kind of team up with Knowledge is done. It's their second collaborative album. It's nominated for Best Progressive R&B. There are a slew of guests on this: Andra Day, Earl Sweatshirt, Snoop, Charlie Wilson, Thundercats on that, Ab Soul. But this is just the two of them. Just kind of, it's the lead-off track after an intro by, of all people, Dave Chappelle. This is 86 Centra, so let's take a listen to just how this groove just, does just that.
9 gripper for all you jack rippers. The driver inside got a license to hit ya. Hop up out the pot and get your top rhyme licked up. We survive. You can only catch a whiff of. Locked in way before the top 10 when I had the mutton chop shades and the wide brim on a different way that I came in the game on. When I levitate, grab my sneakers and hang on.
That song is only about a minute and a half long, but I could listen to that beat for hours. And what's really funny about that is I did a little bit of research and came across a song called Survive from this rapper called Saya from this 2023 album, and he has 23 monthly listeners on Spotify, and it is unmistakably the source beat for this. However, I couldn't find any deeper credits for this song we just heard, 86 Centra, which means, is this the lengths that Knowledge goes to find records to then sample? Or is this something from his own enormous, Knowledge's catalog is huge, and is it just a gem that he already had kicking around that this other artist had picked up? I honestly don't know, and I'm still trying to find out, but if you're listening and you do know, please
text.
Please tell me where this beat came from.
Exactly.
I gotta know.
Okay there, Emmett, we're back to L.A.
All right, we're going jazz-wise, and out of New Orleans is Sullivan Fortney.
I listened to this guy this morning, by the way. Unbelievable, but go ahead.
What's amazing about his sound is a reflection of his personality. I spent some time with him in the fall. He came to the school to work with our students, and just such a beautiful spirit, very introverted, but very detail oriented, and it comes out in his musical performance. He's the longtime pianist for the late Roy Hargrove. I was with him from 2010 to 2017. He's been a pianist for Cecile McLaurin-Salvant, Samara Joy, Etienne Charles. I mean, he has been all over the place. He's up for 3 Grammys, won Best Jazz Instrumental Album, Best Jazz Vocal Album as an accompanist, and then Best Jazz Performance. And here we have, I'm not even sure what we have queued up, but let's listen to it.
Wow. Just listen to that all day.
Oh, tasty, man.
When this kind of thing is really good is when you're stuck in traffic.
The sense of flow and movement.
Yeah. Isn't that Stevie Wonder's Don't You Worry About a Thing, right? Isn't that
Don't You Worry About a Thing? It's from his solo album, from his album Solo Game, which is actually up for the Jazz Instrumental Album. It's a brilliant work. He's just a brilliant artist. And I mean, it's interesting because he's been around for a little while. He's in his late 30s, but he has a long trajectory ahead, and I'm so excited about what he's going to do next.
Wow, I want to look that up.
Okay, what are we looking up with you there?
Well, what we're looking up is Best Chamber Small Ensemble Performance category, and one of those is the Miro String Quartet. They're based in Austin. They put together an album called Home. We can get into, but we won't take too much time with it, all the aspects of what home means. And one of the pieces that I want to highlight here is George Walker, eminent composer, passed away, when was it, 2002 or maybe something? I can't remember exactly.
No, not that early.
Okay. Well, anyway, he wrote a piece as part of his quartet number 1. There's a slow movement that has since become almost like another version of Barber's Adagio for Strings, which, by the way, is also on this album. Let's just hear a little bit of this second movement of George Walker's quartet number 1. It's a piece that he wrote in memory of his mother. And the idea here, tying to the theme of this album, is that your family is your home.
I hear that Barber I'm talking about a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. It's not dissimilar to the Barber.
He died in 2018.
Thank you. Thank you.
The age of 97, I believe, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty beautiful.
So it is gorgeous to hear. It's so beautiful when you think of it being dedicated to his mother. Also, don't mistake this for the only thing in George Walker's arsenal. The guy is an amazing composer. And so it's worth it to look up more of his music, but also worth it to hear more of this album, which has music by Kevin Putz, as I said, Samuel Barber, some Caroline Shaw. And so it's one of my favorite ones from that small ensemble performance
Really
category.
fills the room kind of thing. By the way, on another note, NPR is reporting the Office of Management and Budget has rescinded its memo calling for a pause on federal assistance. I'm sure you'll hear a lot more about that a little bit later on the news. That lasted for a day.
Yeah, I just want to make sure the album's name is Home.
The album's name is Home.
Okay, just want to make sure.
The Miro Quartet. The Miro
Okay.
Quartet.
Back to you, James.
I hate to hear what happens to those that did click resign. Have to indeed go to work and will not be getting 8 months of pay.
I think they're going to book us for the next BPR, actually.
James, before you do your thing, Chris in Tiverton text, I'm watching you guys on the YouTube feed, and I could watch Marjorie dance to these songs all day long. She is really in her element.
That's right.
And if you're not on YouTube or here, that is so true. James,
I've got the white girls overbite
well,
going
you do it
here,
well.
big time.
No, you do. James is still with us. What's up, James?
awake,
Round three.
So I'm glad we had our little laugh break, but we're going to go back to an elegiac mood following up on that Walker small ensemble, in fact, solo. I want to talk briefly about one of the nominees for Best New Age Ambient or Chant Album. I really dislike all of those words as genres. But this album is Opus by Ryuichi Sakamoto. And this is a weird album because it's not a studio album at all. This is a recording from the concert film of the same name, Opus. And I highly recommend that if you can, you watch this documentary, this concert film directed by his son. In late 2022, I believe, Sakamoto had done this announcement. He was very ill at the time with cancer. And he decided as a parting gift, effectively, to create this concert. He could only really have the energy to perform one song at a time. So each individual song is curated by him, performed, once, and then it's kind of stitched together to give the appearance of a seamless 90-minute performance because he couldn't have the energy of a 60 or 90-minute concert. It's gorgeous. The black and white photography is amazing. It's so intimate. It's just him, and it's just the music. Now, I want to listen to a song called Aubade 2020. All I want to say about it is that, as you may or may not know, Sakamoto, very, very long career, Yellow Magic Orchestra, film composer, big on the electronic scene. And so there was this Japanese soft drink called Mitsuya Cider. It was like a cidery drink. And he wrote a jingle for it in 2009. Very bubbly, very electric, very heavy on synth. And in 2020, during a lockdown concert that he did on the internet, he kind of remixed it or recomposed it and called it Aubade 2020. And he performed that in his set list for this film Opus. And it's just a gorgeous departure from that synthy, soft drink, bubbly, effervescent synth thing that he has going on. But let's take a listen to it. It's so powerful.
This kind of carries you like you're on a stream, you know?
And like, again, the song itself, it's kind of goofy and fun, but just the knowledge that this is the last time you would probably play it for anyone to hear, just, it's such a poignant piece of work. And I highly recommend anyone that can see this film.
It kind of ruminates. It reminds me, actually, completely different music as its source, but that latest John Baptiste Beethoven album where he riffs on Beethoven, and it kind of has this feel of just like, just take me where you want to go.
Yeah. I agree, man.
Opus.
I watched it in the dark. Maybe have a light on so you're not too laying with sadness.
Back to LA, Emmett.
Light a candle.
G. Price III, what's up?
Well, I'm taking us to musical theater.
Sweet.
One of my favorite works of all time is The Wiz.
Yes.
And of course, it has an interesting history. The book version of it was 1900. And of course there was the, Wonderful Wizard of Oz, whatnot. And then there was the black version of it that hit Baltimore in 1975 and then hit Broadway in 1978 with music by Quincy Jones, choreography, the whole works. And last year in 2024, we saw a re-adaptation, a remake of it. And it's been remade numerous times. But I think the 2024 version was absolutely amazing. I'm biased. One of my dear friends, Joseph Joubert, was the music supervisor, did the orchestrations and the arrangements.
Nice.
And the album version of this is absolutely exceptional. Let's listen to, I believe, Nichelle Lewis as Dorothy performing that staple of this piece, Home.
Oh man, high energy. Voices like that blow me away.
Oh my goodness.
Just what a voice.
You left out, by the way, you left out Diana Ross and Michael Jackson in that little history litany there.
That's right, Diana Ross and Michael Jackson in the '78 version in the film, and then Stephanie Mills was Dorothy who broke.
Oh, that's right.
'78, on Broadway. But yeah, I mean, so amazing, and the new cast, they were all exceptional performers. I mean, it goes one level and to the next level to the next level. Absolutely amazing.
What a great voice.
What a great voice. Nichelle Lewis is her name. Brian.
Hey, great voices. There's a group that's basically based here in Boston. They get artists from all over, but they center their activities in Boston. Skylark Vocal Ensemble. They've been nominated for Grammys before, and they did an album this last year that's now nominated for 2 Grammys. One is Best Engineered Album for Classical, and the other is Best Choral Performance. And this album is it's one of our favorites at the station, to be honest. We did an interview with their director, Matthew Gard. What he did was he took this 1943 piece by Francis Poulenc, written in Paris in the middle of the occupation, and written to this sort of surreal poetry that is in response to the violence around him. Figure Humaine is the name of this choral piece, one of the hardest choral pieces out there. He interspersed the movements of that with American Civil War era songs and hymns, and the combination of them just turns out to be this unique sort of, expression, salve, commentary on our response to difficulty and violence around us. So let's just hear a little bit of what I wanted to do is play the end of one of the Francis Poulenc songs and the beginning of one of the Civil War songs, just so you can feel this juxtaposition of two kinds of music that you almost wouldn't ever think of putting together. So let's just hear the end of this one song and the beginning of the next. It's really thick harmonies from the middle of the 20th century of France. The name of this particular song is "The Day Shocks Me and the Night Terrifies Me." Oh. But Matthew was so brilliant about which songs to put next to which songs. Listen to how this progresses. It sort of breaks your heart and heals it all in a few seconds. You know what I mean? It's an amazing album, and I don't, like I said, Skylark's been nominated before. I hope they win this year for this category.
So, gentlemen, speaking of nominated before, let's talk for 1 minute about what we weren't going to talk about. No one has won more Grammys than Beyonce. As we know, it does not please a particular man who lives in her house that she doesn't ever win Album of the Year. I think Cowboy Carter is the... starting with you, Emmett, quickly, why hasn't she won, and is this the year?
Well, I mean, it's easy. It's political. It's absolutely political. Brand-wise and in terms of her following, it's absolutely easy to suggest that she should. But then, that category probably has up to 600, if not 700, nominations from the very place. And then it funnels all the way through. And you got to deal with genre and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just going to go with it's political.
How about you, Brian?
Okay.
I'm the last person to ask about why something wins a Grammy. But no, what I'll say, look, I grew up in Texas, and I just want to say that I love that Beyonce has claimed Texas, that Texas is not just for a certain kind of person. The kind of stereotype you might think of. And look, I moved away from Texas for really good reasons, but I love that Beyonce...
Because it was Texas. Exactly.
We could have a whole other show about that, but I just love that Beyonce is channeling some of those qualities of Texas that I remember and I feel, and I hope she does win because it deserves it.
Okay, James.
Similar feelings to Emmett, but I think that the voters are also just always coasting on vibes, which requires you to listen to a very diverse, array of things. And they're going on recency bias, too. For my money, as much as Cowboy Carter could and should win, I do think they're going to go with Brad. How can you forget Brad Summer?
That's
the recency bias right there.
If you're saying they vote on vibes, that probably has the upper hand.
And recency bias, as you say. Gentlemen, this was great, as always. Thank you, all three.
Emmett,
That was really a treat.
We want to hear all about what it's like to be at the Grammys when you come back.
That's right.
I want to get the scoop, okay?
Absolutely.
All right.
Best to your family, Emmett, too.
Yeah, thank you
Appreciate
all.
you
That
all.
was really fun and a great diversion from all the depressing news.
Yes.
We've been speaking with CRB's Brian McCreath, GBH's James Bennett II, and Emmett G. Price III, Dean of Africana Studies at Berkeley, and co-host of GBH's All Revved Up podcast. Thanks again to all of you for coming in. Coming up after a quick break, we're going to open the phone and text lines to you. What is your morning routine? Are you like Jeff Bezos? Do you like to putter in the AM? Or do you prefer doom scrolling first thing in the morning? You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Christy Dashiell is nominated for her first Grammy Award for a jazz album that shows off her vocal range and emotional depth.
The human themes of love, loss, grief, joy, friendship, all of us can relate to that, black, white, brown, whatever.
I'm Elsa Chang. More on her new album, Journey in Black, on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Wondering where...
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Emerson Colonial Theater, with a Broadway production of Jason Robert Brown and Alfred Urry's musical Parade, coming to Boston for 2 weeks, this March 11th through March 23rd. Tickets at emersoncolonialtheater.com. And Furniture Consignment Gallery, curating pre-owned luxury home furnishings for over 30 years. Current inventory is available to view in their showrooms in Burlington, Natick, Hanover, and Plymouth. More at FurnitureConsignment.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan. I'm at the library. Marjorie's zooming in. We're streaming youtube.com/GBH News. Congresswoman Presley joins us tomorrow at 11. So alpha male, other half to Lauren Sanchez, Jeff Bezos, the king of Amazon, a company that relies on constant screen time to keep you buying and watching, revealed that he has a decidedly unproductive morning routine. He gets up, well, actually, rather than me describe it, here he is. Here's Bezos himself in a talk at the Economic Club of Washington, talking about how he loves to, quote, putter in the morning.
I like to putter in the morning, so I like to read the newspaper, I like to have coffee, I like to have breakfast with my kids before they go to school. So I have my kind of puttering time is very important to me. And so that's why I set my first meeting for 10 o'clock.
I like to kill editorials endorsing Kamala Harris at the Washington Post. He gets up early, spends a decent amount of time puttering, as he said, no phones, no news. He does not look at his screen, he says, for the first hour
that he is awake, only schedules, quote, what he calls high IQ meetings between 10 and lunch. So should we all strive to be a little more like Bezos, at least in this one sole regard? Or is this just further proof that these tech oligarchs need to be reined in? Last time I checked, Amazon doesn't let their warehouse workers schedule their high IQ meetings for when best suits them. Here's the real story on the segment. It's midwinter. I wanted an excuse to talk to you all about how hard it is to get up in the morning and start your day. So we want to know how you start your day at 877-301-8970. Complete sensory deprivation. Do you doom scroll, you exercise, or, like a particular producer on the show, Jamie, do you listen to the calming stories on BBC radio documentaries about whales? The number's 877, he does, 877-301-8970. You start it. How do you spend your, I don't even know, what do you do your first hour when you're up?
Well, one of the nice things about getting up when it's still dark out, which I do now because, it's dark at 6 o'clock in the morning, I have this little tiny light, and you can make it really dim, so you don't even have to turn all the lights on. You get your coffee, go in with a little dim light. I'm a meditator, Jim. You know that.
I forgot
been doing
you
it forever.
do that, right. Well, I do.
So that's what I do.
I don't meditate. The clock is set the same time at 5:22 every day, and from 5:22.
I
have no idea.
Why not 5:21?
I can't remember. So 5:22 until it hits 6:22, I make myself a cup of coffee. I do a little reading, news, other kind of reading, nothing else, total solitude, no contact with anybody else in the world. And then I'm ready. It sort of rests you up and relaxes you as you enter what generally is a fairly chaotic day starting at 6:22. So there you go. 877-301-8970. What's your routine in the morning?
Listen to this from Gary in Wisconsin. This is so sweet. My morning routine is simple: having coffee and talking with my wife, planning our day and week. Sometimes while watching the news. Johnny Cash said it best when asked to describe paradise. This morning, with her, having coffee.
Well, that's pretty good.
How's that, Jim?
That's a pretty good one.
I think a lot of people, too, who have little kids, the whole rest of the day, they're screaming, Mommy, Daddy, I want this, I need that, blah, blah, blah. They really like to get up at least an hour early before the kids get up so they can have some peace and quiet before they get into the jumble. You know what I mean?
Well, by the way, I like an hour before anybody gets up. Coworkers, family, whatever it is. Because if you have, in my view, if you have a peaceful start that you have total control over, which almost none of us have in terms of our days, it's a really wonderful way. So I hate to say I'm with Jeff Bezos.
You said before anybody gets up, but as we know, you're texting to poor Jamie nonstop, starting at like 5:30.
Other than that, I'm in total solitude. I try to limit the text. Jamie gets up early too. That wasn't needed to be brought up, but thank you for bringing that up. Other than an occasional text to Jamie, I really have no contact with the outside world, incoming, outgoing. And I'm telling you, as somebody who's sort of...
You don't?
I don't. I don't. You're not up that early. I am sort of a, not high stress, but high something person. And it really prepares you on a day. I mean this seriously, better than you can possibly imagine by just being alone in every sense of the word when the day starts. That's at least my approach. 877-301-8970. What?
Jason from Plymouth. My daughter needs to be on the bus at 8:30, so we all wake up at 7:55 and run around the house like lunatics, starting the day at full speed.
You want to hear a good one? Jamie wrote, Maddie, who's our coworker here at the library, says, quote, my best 30 minutes in the morning are the 30 minutes before Jim arrives at the studio. I can't blame her. I feel
Maddie,
the exact same way.
That's a good one.
877-301-8970. But by the way, that Maddie thing is a variation of what I'm talking about. You have a peaceful, sort of segregated time of your day, because once the day really starts, nobody gets peace, nobody gets solitude, nobody gets to be by themselves, just doing whatever they want to do. 877-301-8970. By the way, do you believe that Bezos does not look at his phone for the first hour that he's awake? Neither do I.
I don't believe it.
I should have said that. But he did say it, so that's our trigger here.
Sheila from Plymouth.
Hi Sheila, how are
you?
Hi.
Hi.
Morning and I are not friends, so I start every morning, lie in my bed, and I do Wordle and connections and strands and all of the New York Times games, no matter how late it makes me. It makes me feel smart, and that's what I do.
That's actually that is a great start. I play some of those games in the Times too. That's actually a great idea. That's a good one.
This
Sheila,
woman
thank
I know,
you for the
Sheila,
call.
Sheila won't get out of bed in the morning until she gets to the genius level or whatever it is in the spelling bee. I'd be there for 3 hours waiting, but she does it every morning. Doesn't get out of bed until she's a genius.
Do you know, we have a common friend in spelling bee who gets every single word every single day, and he stopped doing this. This actually is one of the reasons why I try not to look at my phone in the first hour I'm up. He would text me the image of the 100% completed spelling bee. And I would say I did spelling bee every day for about a year, and I never got 100% of the words, even with all the hints and stuff. And that was really aggravated, so I stopped talking to him too. In any case, who wrote this top note? Zoe? Who wrote this note? Here's from Zoe, another one of my coworkers, for now at least. Remember when Jim was like, oh yeah, I keep to an hour of solitude every morning. I don't text anyone. And Jamie and I, meaning Jamie and Zoe, called out that lie faster than Senator Michael Bennett calling out RFK Jr. at the Senate hearing today. Okay.
Not to mention, what I really like is those times you'd be texting people at 6:30 on Saturday mornings. That was good, Jim.
Well, can I tell you something? I do text you. By the way, I never text you before 6:30. That's number one.
Okay.
And that is true. And number two, if you're asleep and your phone is off, what do you care what time I text you?
Well, because I think it's not me so much. It's our coworkers, some of them who may be young and may have been out for a good time on Friday night and don't really need a text.
You know what, Jamie? And let me just say to you, Jamie and Zoe generally text me on Friday night, and they said, and I don't want to give away secret, they both generally say, please text me. The earlier the better, Saturday morning. And because I care a lot about them and they do fine work, I do what they ask, even though it's a pain in the ass for me, pain in the whatever for me. Matt and Lester.
Matt and Lester, hi.
Hi, Matt.
How are we doing today, guys?
Good, thank you.
I'm not laughing at you, Matt. Go ahead. They're making fun of me. Go ahead, Matt. What's up?
No, I've mastered getting up and getting out of my house within a half hour in the morning.
So, but are you rushing? Because I didn't say this. The beauty of what I do, which is most important to me, I hate rushing more than anything. I don't rush at all on my first hour. You're rushing around, aren't you?
No, I get everything I need ready the night before, my clothes for work. My lunch is in the fridge, so I just get up and make a lap through the house there, get dressed, and pack my lunch on the way through. And then I just cut right out the door there.
The routine sounds like it fits you.
The night before is a big deal, Matt. That saves a lot of time.
Plus, well, I'm doing it at 2 o'clock in the morning is when I get up to go to work, so.
What do you do, Matt?
I work in a production facility, and I'm the chief engineer on the boilers, so I got to be in there at 3 o'clock to get everything warmed up before everybody else gets there.
And that prepared 30 minutes with your clothes laid out gives you, I assume, a smooth landing into the day. That's the case, right?
Exactly.
Well, if it works for you, Matt, as long as you're not rushing, that to me is stress producing. I don't like it. Matt, thank you for your call. I'm sorry you have to get up at that time. You can listen to our podcast on the way in. Another one of our colleagues, I don't know who wrote this. Obviously, this is the time to take aim at me. Of course, it's Zoe. My favorite is when Jim texts, tomorrow morning is fine. And then 5 minutes later texts, any updates yet?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Okay,
well, there
fine,
you go,
Zoe.
Jim.
Get over it.
They got you.
Andy in Lexington. Oh, sorry.
Okay, Andy in Lexington, sorry.
I'm sorry, Marjorie.
Hi, Marjorie and Jim. How are you?
We're good.
Fine, thank you.
Nice to speak with you again.
You too.
I'm up every morning at 6:30. First thing I do is turn up the heat in the house, get my coffee, and go down to my office. Turn on the Channel 5 news and start going through email. And I have to admit, the first thing I read is the Heather Cox Richardson Substack email, and then Robert Reich.
Wow.
And I feel so much more comfortable knowing I'm not the only one who has so much angst about what's going on at the federal level.
That is a beautiful start.
They're both really good. I'm a big fan of both of them, particularly Heather Cox Richardson. I find her very soothing to read, putting things in historical perspective all the time. Andy, thank you for the
Bob
for the
Reich
call.
is one of the smartest people on the planet.
Reich is great too. Reich is great too. He's got a great
incredible.
Substack. I forget what he calls his Substack thing, but it's,
we'll say it in a minute. I'm not sure what
Okay.
it's called either. You were going to read Sheila's text.
Sheila in Littleton. I have a Keurig on my nightstand. I have my coffee all by myself in my favorite chair in my bedroom and think about the schedule for my day. Then I read for an hour, but not the news.
That's a variation of what I do. I do it in a particular chair in my house. sort of the chair that is perfect. It fits me. I love it. It's comfortable. It almost has an imprint of my you-know-what in it with coffee. A little bit of, but a slow start to the day. Now, if you're reading Heather Cox Richardson, he said, that guy a second ago said it gives him comfort because he knows two other people have as much angst as he does. That would cause me more angst, not less angst.
Yeah, I find her calming, not making me more anxious.
Oh, like that guy.
But everybody's, yeah, exactly. And by the way, our staff said it's just Robert Reich at Substack.com. I thought he had a special name for it, but Reich is R-E-I-C-H, in case you want to.
Do you find my text calming just like you find her Substack thing calming?
No. Well, I think, didn't Jamie just text when you say, please call, not urgent? And that always gets you going. I think.
Trying to be nice.
Okay.
An anonymous texter says, Marjorie, text Jim at 5:21 tomorrow. See how he likes it. That's a good one.
Annie from Plymouth, thank you for calling.
Hi, Ann.
Hi, how are you guys doing?
Excellent.
Great.
First time, long time.
We love that. Thank you so much.
Used to listen to you guys on that other station.
Oh, yes.
I'm a retired teacher, and so I get up in the morning and I get my coffee and I come back to bed with my 2 English Springer Spaniels and we herkle-durkle.
Oh, we talked to herkle-durkle about a year ago on the show. Explain what herkle-durkle is there, Ann.
Well, for me, it's just chilling out, watching the birds out on the bird feeder, and I don't even turn on the TV or anything, and we just chill out and get ready for the day and stuff like that. And
Isn't it
read my
specifically
columns like Heather Cox?
Isn't it specifically extra time in bed? Isn't that what the traditional?
Herkle-durkle.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, I kind of stretch out and just kind of get my mind ready for the day. So thanks to you guys, I herkle-durkle every morning.
By the way, you sound totally relaxed, Ann. I should say whatever time it is, 1:50, so it's working. Ann, thanks for the call.
A wife is complaining about her husband.
Oh, I'm sorry.
She says,
Go ahead.
We
cut her off.
That
was my fault.
I'm
Go ahead.
sorry.
Yep, go ahead.
She says her husband plows, and boy, oh boy, does it totally throw me off for the day if he's up when I am. She says they're tripping all over each other. He likes the TV on really loud, and she needs silence. So that's the debate. Do you want to have silence in the morning, or do you want to have the TV or radio or some kind of podcast or music playing? I think that's a big.
What do you do?
I like silence in the morning. But,
I do 30. Since you asked, Marjorie, no, you didn't. I do 30, and I do to 5:52, which is 30 minutes. No, it's true. This is really what I do every day. Silence. Why do you find this so funny?
Well, it's the 22 and the 52.
I don't know why.
Usually it's 5:20 or it's 5:50.
Well, what do you care?
Is there something special about that extra minute or two?
Yeah, it's because my alarm has been set at 5:22 for like 20 years, and I don't know why, so don't ask me again.
Okay.
Till 5:52 silence, and to 5:50, pardon me, to 6:22 for 30 minutes. If the world is not in total crisis, I listen to music, and if it's in crisis and I feel like I'll be nervous if I wait till 6:22 to get caught up on things, I start listening to the news. Go ahead, read the anonymous texter. I know, Marjorie, it's making you happy. Go ahead.
I spend an hour every morning working on an app that silences my radio whenever Jim speaks.
Oh, that's so fun. You know who the anonymous texter is? Zoe. That's who it is. Allison in Medway, you're on Boston Public Radio. This was all started because Jeff Bezos spends the first hour of every day, or at least so he says, with 0 screen time until he's been up for an hour. How about you, Allison?
I don't give a bleep about Jeff Bezos.
Okay.
But I whine a lot before I get out of bed. I'm an older person, but I still mentally in my teenage years, and spend a lot of energy mental energy motivating myself out of bed.
And
it's not easy.
Whining does that for you?
Well, I don't want to get out of bed.
Yeah, I got it.
So I whine.
Well, if it works for you, Allison, then we're happy for you, and thank you.
Yeah, I think a lot of
sharing
people don't like getting out of bed. I think for some people it's really hard. They're not morning people. They don't want to hop out of bed. They just would like to stay in and put their head under the covers for another hour.
I've ever told you I get up at 5:22? Did I ever tell you that? Exactly. And I generally spring out of bed because I'm so excited for the day, Marjorie, and for my first hour of solitude, actually.
Here's something that was a long time ago, but people may remember. This person says their morning routine years ago, they loved being awakened by a bird song from the Robert J. Lertzema show. Remember, he was for a long time, had a show here on GBH, and he played bird songs.
He did?
Yes.
What does that do for you?
Well, hearing the birds in the morning, Jim, is sort of a nice thing. We don't have that many birds around anymore because they're dying off, the poor birds. But anyway, don't you like to hear birds in the morning?
I do. I generally, from 5:22 to 5:52, I listen to bird songs. I thought it was silent, but it's bird songs, actually. And then, by the way, just to change of pace a little bit, here's some morning routine tips and tricks from the famed go-getter and occasional axe murderer, Patrick Bateman. This is from the opening scene in the movie American Psycho. Here it is.
In the morning, if my face is a little puffy, I'll put on an ice pack while doing my stomach crunches. I can do 1,000 now. After I remove the ice pack, I use a deep pore cleanser lotion, then a honey almond body scrub. And on the face, an exfoliating gel scrub. There is an idea of a Patrick Bateman, but there is no real me. And though I can hide my cold gaze, I simply am not there.
That was not only one of the worst clips, it was one of the worst movies. You ever see that movie?
No.
Absolutely
American Psycho?
Horrible.
Is that what it was?
And that's how horrible.
All these women?
Who played that part, by the way? He was horrible, too. That was Christian Bale? Oh, I feel horrible. I love Christian Bale. Well, the movie was horrible anyway.
Well, we should say what they suggest.
What do they suggest?
What you do in the morning instead of doom scrolling or doing media or looking at your phone. To exercise.
Yeah, I do that.
To call a friend or family member. I don't think they'd like that at 5:22.
No.
To prepare a healthy breakfast. To meditate. To listen to music. To create a gratitude list. To read a book, not online. And spend time outside and get the morning light. Haven't you heard of people that like to go walk first thing in the morning?
Well, there's no morning light when most people get up right now. So
there is in this spring and the summer.
Yeah, I know, but it's not spring or summer.
Well, you have to wait. You wouldn't want to probably walk now because it's cold. But I can see wanting to walk really early in the morning when it's nice.
It is?
Absolutely.
Let me just say what I do, if I may. From 5:22 to 32, I listen to a chickadee. I find the chickadee's chirp to be particularly soothing. Do you? And then the woodpecker. From 5:32 to 42. I try not to be too anal about the timing. We only have 30 seconds, and Kale in a car, it's yours. Quickly, go.
Hi, I have to tell you, you're my favorite people on the planet. My husband always wakes me up. He gets up at 4 a.m., so he always wakes me up to say I love you and goodbye. And so I get to lollygag in bed until the light actually wakes me up or my bladder says go. And so then after that, I spend, down, turn the heat on, get my cup of coffee. I work remotely so I can, be disheveled. I try not to be online on video for my morning meetings and stuff. But I do about a half hour before I actually log into work. And then I have the flexibility to do what I need to during my day. So,
you nailed it.
It doesn't bother you.
Stuff that Jeff Bezos does.
I can understand that, and I sort of feel the same way. Kale, thank you.
Kale's
for
very nice. She doesn't mind getting
there.
woken up at 4 o'clock in the morning. That's very nice.
An anonymous texter says, "Hey Jim, listening to chickens frying is not the same as songbirds." I think I knew that. I'm not sure, but I think I knew that. That's it.
Thank you for listening to us
back.
today, Boston Public Radio. Yep, I'm back.
You are back.
Thanks to everyone who came down to the Boston Public Library. You can keep up with us 24/7 by way of our podcast or check out our TikTok page. Tomorrow, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley is going to join us, former Public Safety Secretary Andrew Cabral, Boston Globe columnist Marcela Garcia, Nova filmmaker Terry Randall, with a film about former Navy pilot Ryan Graves and unidentified flying objects. I started it last night.
So did I. It's great.
What are UFOs? Very excited about that one, Jim. We want to thank our crew, Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, with additional support from Tamsin Vital. Our engineer is John LeClaw Parker. Our executive producer is Jane Bologna. Our special thanks to the BPL staff, Maddie Geyer, Bill Francis, Juan Jose Cadena. Thanks to our hosts at the Newsfeed Cafe and across the street at the Lenox Hotel. Stay tuned to the Culture Show with Jared Bowen, which starts immediately after us on 89.7 GBH. I'm Marjorie Egan, of course. I almost said I was Jim Browdy,
you
but I'm
forgot
not.
for a second. And by the way, the sound of the woodpecker pecking away for like 10 minutes in the morning, also beautiful and soothing. I'm Jim Browdy. Marjorie's back.
What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Central Square Theater, presenting Space, a new play about the Mercury 13 female pilots, their ancestors, and the national civil rights space race that has spanned our past century. Begins January 30th. CentralSquareTheater.org. It's a cat's world. On the next Nature, lion, leopard, and cheetah parents attempt to